Cocktober to be a thing, and we don't want South Carolina to finish on a 6-game winning streak again. I've actually seen both of those jokes multiple times. But, in all seriousness, it is, you always kind of segment these schedules, right? And that's the good news, is that under Shane Beamer, this team has typically played its best ball for the most part, right? At the end of the year, you are able to, it's kind of hard to say ease into a schedule. It's not like they're playing an FCS team at home to open the 2025 season, but you get a Virginia Tech team that, honestly, guys, is kind of reeling right now. And again, they have the opportunity to rebuild their team through the transfer portal, but right now, Brent Pry and his Hokies are a lot more in the transfer portal taketh phase of the experience, because they're losing guys left and right, and you just went through the rest of the games, Tyler. This is the more on a schedule that's never really favorable, quote unquote, for South Carolina. That is probably the stretch of the schedule that gets more favorable. Once again, just like in 2024, a difficult October slate, right? You've got to go. Yeah, you've got a couple home games against Oklahoma and Alabama, but those will still be challenges. And then, of course, you got the 2 away games against Ole Miss, a team that, again, we don't really know what they'll look like, because Lane Kiffin, almost said Lane Portal. That's a good name for him. Lane Kiffin's going to build his...
That's his other alias.
That's his alias.
It's Portal Lane, Chris. Get it right.
Portal Lane. Yeah, I got it backwards. Portal Lane is going to certainly build, and he already has started on that. We'll see what they look like. They'll be good. They'll be talented. He'll have an offense that's tough to prepare for. And then LSU, which, man, Garrett Nussmeier's back. We obviously don't know yet the window of game times, but a night game in Death Valley in Baton Rouge is one of the most intimidating environments you'll ever play in. And then you got to go to Kyle Field and A&M, your first game in November, in the middle of November, which is a daunting task. So certainly, broken record alert, this is a challenging schedule once again for South Carolina, but they do have a chance, I think, to get off to a really good start to kind of build up some cushion early in the year.
Yeah, that was what stood out to me, is you got 5 winnable games to start this thing, which just feels like it has not been the case. And when you talk about early momentum, or late momentum from this year, maybe carrying over into that, let's see if they can win the bowl, obviously. Man, you could reel off, not to get too far ahead of ourselves, a pretty nice win streak here and have a lot of people talk. The interesting thing is you're going to have a lot of people talking about you early on next year, which, fair or not, does matter still in college football. I think we all hoped, if this era is what we thought it would be, that maybe being preseason top 25 doesn't have much of an effect on the final rankings, but it does still feel, to me, look at like a Texas, how they really kind of never fell, even though they didn't really beat a lot of great teams. So being ranked and highly respected early on can go a long way. So for Carolina, you're going to have an opportunity to be preseason top 25 and then to stay there and just inch up as the year progresses. And the funny thing is, much like nobody gave anybody any credit at South Carolina going into this year, the national media is probably going to gloss over the fact that they are losing a ton of guys from this defense. So there's going to be questions on this team going into next year as well.
And Chris, you mentioned your rapid reaction on Gamecock Central after the schedule was released last night, where you put a difficulty ranking on each of the 12 games that Carolina has next year. And one that I think stands out to a lot of people is you had Alabama as the 5th most difficult game. That game obviously here in Williams-Brice Stadium coming up in October. And part of that certainly goes to Alabama not being as scary this past year with Kalen DeBoer at the helm compared to Nick Saban. And, obviously Carolina played them very tight in that game in Tuscaloosa. But I think it also is equally Carolina just being a whole lot better than people thought they were going to be, where who knows who the favorite in that matchup is going to be when that game rolls around halfway through the year next year.
Yeah, it is difficult to predict. But I think that does stand out, Tyler, right? On one hand, you can go, okay, well, South Carolina's got some road games, but man, there were some Nick Saban teams. I hate to pull the Bama fan thing where you take everything back to, well, when Nick was there, but seriously, they were so dominant most of the time that if you took a 12-team schedule for anybody, you put any teams on there, pick a bunch of other top-ranked teams. Like for Bama to be, and not saying that I'm absolutely correct in this, it's obviously what I think, but you can make arguments that they should be higher, they should be lower, and you might have good arguments. But for Bama to even be considered by pretty much anyone is, okay, that's the 5th hardest game on a 12-game schedule. It's like almost unfathomable, right? But, Bama's going to have some questions. They've had some defections. They're doing a lot of portaling this offseason in terms of losing some guys, in terms of recruiting a bunch of guys. It's just a different ball game there. And you look at the season that they had, they were obviously very, very close to what South Carolina did. So we'll see. But, I just think you look at some other games on the schedule with the caveat that, it's very hard to project these things right now. I'm always one that tends to lean on road games being a little bit more difficult. And the reality is that South Carolina has to go to Oxford. They have to go to College Station. They have to go to LSU. And they're going to play some other teams that have a chance to be really good, I think, at home. Clemson being one of them. They'll host Missouri. They'll host Oklahoma. I mean, there's a lot of quality teams on the schedule. So it is kind of jarring when I'm going through going, man, I think Alabama's like the 5th hardest game. I mean, I'm fully cognizant of how weird that is, but that's kind of what it seems like to me right now.
Well, that's an important thing that you point out. And the neutral site game, I could count home or away, however you want to look at it. But in terms of true road games, Carolina only has 4 next year, but it is going to Ole Miss. It is going to LSU. It is going to College Station. It is going to Missouri, a place that historically has not treated South Carolina all that well. So while you don't have as many games on the road compared to this year, they are some of the toughest road environments in the SEC you're going to have to deal with.
By the way, guys, I got to say I do appreciate the Gamecock in-house media team over there. Just for their personality with these graphics. October 4th, November 8th, bye. Says weddings go here.
Yes.
Weddings shouldn't be in the fall to begin with, but if you have to have one, then yes, on a bye week.
Tyler, you have a wife.
I do. We got married in the spring.
Some wives want a fall wedding. You have 2 opportunities, October 4th and November 8th. Right here on the official graphic. It says weddings go here. So
if you're
planning, there you
put
go.
it on a bye week.
There you go.
You will miss the other college football games that happen that week.
That is the trade-off.
That's what TVs are for.
But nobody wants to have to watch the game at a reception. So yes, at least do it on a bye week if you're going to do it. Well,
I love how in the South, we measure in the fall. You don't say, "Hey, when is that thing?" You don't say, "Oh, it's on November 16th." You're like, "That's on Ole Miss," or "That's on whatever." You just call the weekend the game, which is phenomenal.
Just means more, man.
No, it does.
That's why we live. We'll get into what's going on in the transfer portal. A pretty big name that's considering South Carolina that could be a huge asset to the offense. We'll dive into coming up in just a second. But first, tonight, Trans-Siberian Orchestra live at Colonial Life Arena have 1 final pair of tickets to give away. Caller number 4 right now, 803-404-6100. Win yourself tickets to see TSO tonight at Colonial Life Arena. It is the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs on your Thursday on the game. Welcome back in. Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs, Tyler, West, and Chris, along with you on your Thursday here on the game. Reminder coming up tonight, Thursday Night Football, Rams and 49ers. Pregame at 7:30, kick at 8:15 right here on the game. Of course, transfer portal is open. A couple of names for Carolina's gone in, healthy transfers, as Wes likes to refer to them as for the most part. And we're starting to get some names of guys making visits to campus here coming up soon to potentially be Gamecocks coming up in 2025. There's certain names in the portal that catch more attention than others, and one that really popped out yesterday as he listed Carolina in his top 6 was Kevin Concepcion from NC State. For anybody that watched NC State play this year, particularly early on in the season, he's kind of the spark plug of a slot receiver that was out there making a lot of plays when Grayson McCall was at quarterback before he ended up getting injured. A guy in 2 years there that's got a lot of production, a little more productive last year as a true freshman with 1,200 all-purpose yards and 10 touchdowns, but truly a hot commodity in the transfer portal that has interest in South Carolina.
Yeah, the portal is portaling, and there's a lot going on. I've been a little bit, Chris, surprised at how many people. There's been a few people on the boards that have asked us hey, what's going on in the portal? And I'm just like, guys, look around. There's a lot going on in the portal. These guys are not going to commit. Most of them are not going to commit day one. So you're seeing, first of all, behind the scenes right now, it is 100 miles an hour over there in the ops building. Can confirm that for you. I'm talking hundreds of players that when you go back to before the portal opened, guys that maybe you were going ahead and evaluating to guys that you're evaluating now, hundreds of players at every position are being evaluated. And now you're starting to see some of those visits, I guess, get locked in, you would say, and guys are starting to kind of put out some lists. Hey, here are 3 teams, here are 4 teams. Like Tyler said, KC Concepcion from NC State, easily one of the best and also widely known wide receivers in the portal. Chris has a top 6 now. It does include South Carolina. Am I wrong here, man? I sort of presented this to our fans there on Gamecock Central. I was like, look, yeah, this is newsworthy. I'm also a little bit more wait and see. Let's see if South Carolina can get him on campus. He's one we were tracking that South Carolina was going to have some interest in. But to me, when you're talking about portal recruiting, a top 6 doesn't really do it for me. You gotta start to. Once I hear this kid's going to be in Columbia for a visit, that's when I think fans can maybe start to get a little bit more excited. But I say all that having not heard anything additional. Have you heard anything else on him since that report came out?
I think we're on the same page there. It was kind of interesting when 2 points here. One specific to Kevin Concepcion. He's got a brother who's in the 2025 recruiting class who had been committed to NC State and flipped to Kansas State. And unless something's happened since then that I'm not aware of, Wes, which is possible, the brother's going to K-State, and there was some talk that, hey, KC, Kevin, is also going to go to Kansas State. That was kind of the early buzz, but they didn't even make the top 6 here, did they, Wes? So, doesn't look like that's happening. And I do get the sense, I agree with you, that South Carolina, yeah, they're in the top 6. I do know, I can confirm on my end, he's certainly a guy that South Carolina has some interest in. But where does it go from here? And I kind of look at just some examples in the past from the transfer portal. Guys that South Carolina has ended up landing. Not that every formula is the same, but think about Kyle Kennard. He took, I think, 3 visits. It was Missouri, as Eli Drinkwitz talked about the other night at the Nagurski Award ceremony, and Florida State and South Carolina. And he kind of narrowed those down. He got down to basically 3, and he picked from those. DeAndre Jules, South Carolina, Florida was in there, and you can just go through some examples of some kids that only visited South Carolina and, talked to some other schools, considered some others, but they literally just visited South Carolina and that's it. Or other schools, they just took 1 visit. I think that's obviously the key, right? Is when and where do the visits get scheduled? And I think that's one reason, Wes, even though the portal's only been open since Monday, I get the sense that some fans are a little antsy. They want a portal commitment. They want 10 or 15 visits scheduled. They want some of these top targets to be confirmed for visits. Do have to give it some time, right? Some guys get visits scheduled very quickly. Some talk to a bunch of schools and then whittle it down and then go and visit, 2, 3, 4, 5 schools. And if you're on that list, you're going to have a shot. You may bring in a guy and say, this isn't what we're looking for. We've seen that in the past. And Shane Beamer's talked about that. Darren Usher, the recruiting director, player personnel director, talked with us about that the other day. And then I think we're also forgetting, Wes, sometimes the portal window's still open. There's going to be some guys that play in the college football playoff. There's going to be guys that play in the bowl that still have the opportunity to jump in the portal too. So got to kind of pump the brakes and back it up. That's just more of a general point than a point related to KC. But there's a lot more happening behind the scenes than we know about, for sure.
Yeah, and I think things can change so quickly as well in the portal that, sometimes a guy might be in the mix to visit South Carolina, then very quickly they're not, or vice versa. And so it all happens really, really quick. Now, there are, if you go to Gamecock Central, there are a lot of confirmed visits already that we're kind of tracking there. And this is another one, and I'll be honest, like, Concepcion, that was a guy we were already sort of at least keeping an eye on and tracking. But also that was like a no-brainer. Like, the kid is, there's no questions here about the ability with him. Like, he has been productive from the moment he arrived at NC State. And also is a guy who can do some different things for you, man. Like, not just a wide receiver. He's had success running the football. You can get him the ball in jet sweeps, all those things. But another name, this one that has kind of just popped up a little bit out of nowhere for me, and this is coming from a national report, Chris, is Gabriel Brownlow Dindy from Texas A&M, reportedly going to visit South Carolina. This is, was that Hayes that put this out? Yeah, Hayes Fawcett, On3 national guy and graphic guy. Supposedly going to be on campus December 16th and 17th. And this one as well, former five-star guy. Now, in the case of him, has not really played much at A&M. So I do think you're kind of seeing South Carolina hit on some different approaches in terms of background for these guys. But I'm with you. Ultimately, it has felt like the guys they have pushed for in the end have been sort of the route of productive, but I don't even know if under the radar is the right way to say it, but productive at sometimes smaller schools.
Yeah, they've had a mix of those. And then I think, a good comp possibly, Wes, for Gabriel Brownlow Dindy is former blue chip recruit who goes to a school that's typically recruited very well but has not played a lot early. How about Monkel Goodwine, right? Like, we saw South Carolina take a bunch of very productive guys, or guys that had played a lot, Kennard, Knight, etc. But also they took Monkel Goodwine, a guy who was a former top 100 recruit, but was kind of buried on the depth chart at Bama, had not played much. I think he had only played in, a couple games during his career, but obviously has ability. And, Goodwine came here and did some good things and played in year one and has impressed the staff and is going to play a lot more next year. Dindy's a guy where he's got ability, right? And so could he be a Monkel Goodwine type guy? Obviously, getting ahead of ourselves, we got to see how all these visits go and how that shakes out. But I think an intriguing addition to the visit board.
Well, and Chris, going back to Concepcion real quick, I do feel like, and I'm not, again, I think we got to just wait and see a little bit there, like pump the brakes on just inserting Concepcion into your Gamecock dynasty on College Football 25. Like, I don't think we're quite there yet. But we have seen South Carolina, most of the portal years, mixed in with all the sort of maybe not quite as big of names. You have seen them go out and get a Rocket Sanders. We've seen them go out and get a Spencer Rattler. Now, with those guys specifically, there was that added element of there's a prior connection here, a prior relationship. We know, obviously, Spencer and Beamer from the time at Oklahoma. We know Dow Loggins and Rocket knew each other from Arkansas. some strength staff connections there with South Carolina and Rocket as well. But I think a lot of fans are sort of curious. Will there be that one or two sort of big name guy in this class that sort of fits in with a little bit more of a filling the needs approach with some of the other spots?
We'll certainly see what happens. Of course, Gamecock Central has all the latest on the transfer portal stuff, keeping you updated each and every day as we try and do here on the 11 o'clock hour as well. Coming up next, we'll get Chris's thoughts on the new hire up in Chapel Hill. Bill Belichick to the Tar Heels. Coming up next, Gamecock Central Takeover Hour, presented by Firehouse Subs here on the game. Welcome back in. Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs, Tower West. Chris along with you on your Thursday here on the game. Tomorrow, busy day, early game with Preston and Elijah. Going to be broadcasting from the South Carolina Card Show with Palmetto Cards out the South Carolina State Fairgrounds from 6 until 9 a.m. Then tomorrow night at 9 o'clock, the Love Chevrolet High School Football Scoreboard Show Championship Edition with Justin and Elijah to wrap up the 2024 high school football season. All that coming up tomorrow here on the game. Chris, Wes and I have talked about this. Preston and I talked about this. Jack and I talked about this. The news of the day in college football, Bill Belichick being hired in Chapel Hill to lead the Tar Heels for at least the next 3 seasons. Your initial thoughts on this news that became official last night?
Man, I have a lot, probably like everybody else. My very first reaction when I saw that the deal was done, right? Because that's, obviously it kind of formulated some opinions when you saw this being reported as a possibility, which I'll get to. I was fascinated by the 3-year deal, right? Because this will actually loop into my general thoughts about it. But you don't see that a lot. You don't see a coach kind of introduced to a new program by, hey, we got this new coach. He got a 3-year deal. It's kind of like, oh. Now, and I get it. I get his age. Many people pointed that out to me as if I didn't know when I pointed out that South Carolina is due to play UNC again in 2028, 2029, and that let off all the jokes about he won't be there and his age and all that. We'll see. 3-year deal is odd. Typically, you want to project stability, but I think, guys, when you're hiring Bill Belichick, and you may joke and say, it's desperate or whatever. I think the 3-year deal actually signals something bigger, and that is you're just leaning into exactly what this is. What Bill Belichick has stated publicly that he would do if he got a college job, and that is just NFL pipeline. You're not sitting there going, hey, we're going to get, we're going to take 25 freshmen every year and develop them and have the college experience. Like, yeah, they're going to go to class and do all those things, but we'll see how it ends up fleshing out. But to me, there's a part of me that thinks this could work. I'm not saying it will, but in the transfer portal era, we talk all the time about how kids that are transferring are looking at this much differently than high school recruiting. It is a business decision. You got shorter windows. You don't have 2, 3, 4 years to build a relationship. It is basically colleges evaluating, do we need this position? Can this kid help us? And what is it going to cost in NIL? That's what colleges are evaluating. For Bill Belichick and a pro approach, that's what he would be doing. For kids, they're going, here's a coach who's won 8 Super Bowls. He's been in the NFL. He's been in personnel. He's drafted. He knows the deal. He knows what it takes to get to the league. If this is kind of a transactional thing and I have a year left or 2 years left, let me go here and it be basically a pipeline program. Now, obviously, you can make the NFL from any program, right?
Sure.
But that is going to be Bill Belichick's pitch. And so while I'm enjoying all the jokes and memes and all that kind of stuff, for sure, I don't know if I'm ready to outright dismiss this as some impossible hire or a situation that couldn't work.
I'm in the camp, and I talked about this with Les. I don't think this is going to work out personally, but at the same time, I understand North Carolina's position because, they brought in Mac Brown to kind of get the program back on its feet, but in the past year or so, that has kind of gone the other direction. Apathy's kind of set in with the fan base. They stopped caring by the end of the season because of, the team just not being good. So making a hire like this that's very much outside the box brings in a huge name that can draw probably a lot of initial interest. And if the, collective and everybody at the school is ready to pony up the money to make it happen, then they have the potential to be successful. That, again, for a program like North Carolina that hasn't had the most success in the past handful of decades, I don't want to say they have nothing to lose because you always have something to lose, but they're in a position to go outside the box like this for sure.
Are you coming around a little bit, Tyler? Is that what I'm hearing?
I'm not completely coming around. I still don't think it's going to be successful in the long run. I'm saying I see opportunities where if it was going to work, it could, if that makes sense.
It does, but I feel like there was a slight slide in the direction of maybe.
I'll see, and Chris, of course, everybody is active in the portal right now. I'll see what kind of talent they get rushing in to want to play with Bill Belichick, and I guess kind of go from there.
Chris, I think, and I said this earlier, I think they're going to have a good portal class, man. Like, I think, like, Bill Belichick is, evaluation is what he does. Like, I'm not saying it's going to be it's not going to be a portal lane class necessarily. Their Ole Miss is more like, let's make the splash. I think they can put together a class of kind of similar players to what we see South Carolina do, where you're saying who are some solid football players, like who are some productive football players, or who are some guys that are out there that are maybe one little step away. Like, talk about Kennard. That's sort of the one everybody points to. But I specifically remember Kennard talking about how Sterling Lucas went over how many barely missed sacks he had at Georgia Tech. And it was just seeing that, oh, this guy is right. Like, this guy is beating his man. He just needs to learn to finish the play a little bit better. And so I think Belichick obviously has an eye for talent. Is there going to be an adjustment? Yes. Some NFL guys get to college and they don't like anybody because they're like, that guy's not good enough. That guy's not good enough. And it's because their brain is wired. Yeah. I'm looking for a guy who can go play in the freaking NFL, which is different. But I don't know, Chris. Go ahead, man. But I think this strangely could work because we're also, we don't build college football on 5-year windows anymore. We build college football on can you win this year?
Right now, yeah. And you're much more set up to be able to do that, quickly. And, you can't say, a lot of coaches who are on the older end, you go, well, they haven't adjusted to NIL. It's like, well, Bill Belichick, if you give him a budget, he's used to paying players, and he'll have no problem. I mean, this is a question for him, but it's a question for anybody else. It's like, how well can you manage that budget? And for him, and it's not like I know him. Maybe we'll get Yuval on the show to ask him about this a little bit more, but Bill Belichick is not going to have tolerance for some guy like a freshman or a transfer who hasn't done much coming on campus and asking for $500,000 or on a phone call asking for $500,000. He'll just say, no thanks. I'll move on to somebody else. Right. So it is just such a fascinating hire, I think. And, Belichick, on one hand, you can't really envision him going into, recruits' living rooms and having recruits come into his office and talk to him. But, I kind of question, how much of that does he have to do? Deion Sanders, right? He's a huge brand in a different way, different personality in and of himself. He doesn't even go on the road and recruit. He doesn't do in-home visits. Yet Colorado has raised its recruiting profile 10-fold, 100-fold, 1,000-fold from what it was before he got there. And so I think that's kind of the question, is just how much of a recruiting jump do you get based on Belichick? And I think we can guess. We don't really know yet. And I think we'll start seeing some early evidence, one way or another. And there's been some talk about him getting a significant NIL budget. Look, if you have a significant NIL budget and you spend it the right way, you can be successful, and you don't have to be Bill Belichick to do that. So I think that's a key, and certainly bringing some of that pro knowledge to the college level, it could work. I don't know if it will or won't. I don't have a strong conviction on it, but I am definitely fascinated to watch it.
Well, Chris, you also play an ACC schedule. So,
hey, Wes, you can't say that.
I mean, we pulled it up earlier.
Hey, they got 2 teams in the playoff.
Yeah. I'm saying.
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting to see all this play out. Again, we should get his introduction here.
When we formulate it, we're going to do a make your case.
Okay.
And we're going to put a first-year win total.
Okay.
On the board.
Can do that.
Guys, how about Clemson plays North Carolina next year? The Dabo and Belichick kind of compare and contrast. Fascinating.
Very interesting. Again, a lot of headlines going to come from this over the next couple of years of Bill Belichick out in Chapel Hill. Is it illegal to plant a flag in the ground? It might be soon in Columbus, Ohio. We'll dive into that coming up next to wrap up today's edition of the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour, presented by Firehouse Subs on your Thursday here on The Game.
I'm usually not wild about state legislators trying to get publicity, but in this case, he's got the right idea. This needs to end, but ultimately, it's really up to Ryan Day. You don't need a state law. You don't need the Supreme Court to rule on this. You simply need head coaches doing their jobs and telling players, don't do it, or you won't be on the team, and I think that would solve it. I would also tell my team the next time Michigan comes to town, try winning the game.
Welcome back in. Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Tyler West and Chris.
Voice.
Paul Feinbaum yesterday on ESPN weighing in on a proposed law by a representative in the state of Ohio, Josh Williams, proposing the Ohio Sportsmanship Act, or the OHIO Sportsmanship Act, to be specific, in which, as it reads, no person shall plant a flagpole with a flag attached to it in the center of the football field at Ohio Stadium of the Ohio State University on the day of a college football competition, whether before, during, or after the competition. Whoever violates this section is guilty of a felony of the 5th degree, because they were upset that Michigan tried to plant the flag in the middle of their field a couple of weeks ago.
This is. Go ahead, Wes.
We're about to say the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's no way they don't have something better to do with their time, right?
Tax dollars are going towards this.
Chris,
I think. Look, and this is not, never will be a political show, thank goodness. But we got to remember where this is coming from, right? This is a politician. And a good part of politics is pandering, right? Yep. And so, and you can't even take this seriously, because I don't know. I didn't read the proposed bill. I haven't seen all the comments associated with it. Presumably, if you were, it would be, I would have more respect for it, or a modicum of respect for it, if it was like, hey, it's dangerous to do this. But it's literally called the Sportsmanship Act. So it's basically, you're just offended by it. It's not serious. It should not be taken serious. And, on one hand, I'm like, please stop wasting our time. This is why. I know it's in Ohio and not here. But, if it happened here, I'd say, please fix our roads instead of doing things like this. But I'm not surprised, guys. This is the kind of thing that happens. There's a lot of ridiculousness out there.
No, I'm not surprised either. But the fact that it's so specific to Ohio Stadium and Ohio State is what makes this funny, because it's one thing to enact or try and enact a law that encompasses the entire state, right? Say, okay, well, we don't want this to happen at Miami of Ohio. We don't want this to happen at, Toledo or places like that also play college football. But to zero in on Ohio Stadium means you are specifically not wanting Michigan to do this again, because they're the only team that's beaten you in that stadium in the past handful of years. And, of course, the fight broke out and there was pepper spray and all that kind of stuff, which I can understand not wanting to have that happen. But I don't think we need felony charges put against players which, by the way, for those who don't know, that is turf, which you can't penetrate with the flag. They didn't actually get the flag in the ground. They just merely attempted to, which is what sparked the brawl.
Yeah, I don't know. I have nothing else to add. We're obviously, again, it's not a political show. I don't even know what politicians are doing this, but you're clearly pandering to your base there, I think.
Who even if you're trying to pander to your base, who even likes this? Like, I don't know. Maybe I don't really know. Ohio State, like they're thinking, because you remember we were talking about this the other day. Ryan Day doing the thing on TV where he's like, aside from my dad dying, this is like the worst. And it's like, wow, is that like, is that what Ohio State fans like? Do they like hearing that it's like life and death series? I don't know. So maybe this is a wildly popular bill with the people. And if so, then that says something. But it's just kind of, again, I want to be careful with what I say, because I don't want to come off political. We're not trying to do that. But this is just ridiculous.
Yeah, it's a funny story to talk about because
it's been made fun of, and it should be.
It has, and it's ridiculous. And again, it's a knee-jerk reaction to, or attempting a knee-jerk reaction to what happened a couple weeks ago. Now, this did, and we didn't really get into it after rivalry weekend because we were kind of focused on the Clemson game, but that day was full of a lot of flag planting and seeming fights, Florida and Florida State, UNC and NC State. Like, this did become an issue that day, so I can understand trying to reel it in a little bit, but this seems a tad bit extreme, and I don't expect this to pass at the House in Ohio by any means.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know enough about any of it to know if it will or not to say that, but waste of our time.
Yeah, but for anybody that's not ingrained in college sports, they might be shocked by this. We're not. This is the passion of sports fans everywhere, especially at the college level. And when you're losing to your rival in Michigan 4 years in a row now, you want some kind of edge to get back, I guess. So try and prevent them from planting a flag by risking jail time or a huge fine. Yeah, I guess it makes sense to them.
We've had some, we've had some doozy bills in our state before, but I think we can all be proud that we at least don't have this coming up in the state of South Carolina, because there's been some flag planting between Clemson and South Carolina, and I know, Dabo Swinney and Beamer have talked about it really for safety purposes, not being offended.
Right.
So at least we don't have it going on here.
Very true. That'll do it for the Gamecock Central Takeover Hour presented by Firehouse Subs. Halftime show with Terry Ford up next on your Thursday here in the game.
All right, fellas. Y'all have a good one.
All right, see, man, I'm out tomorrow, so it'll just be you and Wes again. And
Oh, no. What are we going to do?
And Monday as well. So, but you guys, you got it. You got plenty.
Okay, if you say so.
So, you got it. See ya.
All right, see ya.
All right, guys, before I get out of here, let me tell you about our friends over at Firehouse Subs. We tell you every single day, head on over to firehousesubs.com or get the Firehouse Subs app where you're going to hit the Rapid Rescue to go. You're going to have your food waiting for you on the shelf in a bag right when you walk in. Incredibly efficient way to do it. And, of course, you're going to get points every single time you order, which you can then trade in for free food. Some other great things going on. The hot sauce bar is back. You can add some flavor, additional flavor, in my opinion, to any sub when you dine in or pick up. Also, looking forward to trying this new French dip. We're going to be back at a local Firehouse Subs here soon. We're going to let you know that date, that time, all those things. Looking forward to trying this French dip for the first time. Whatever it is you want, there is an option. There is a sub for you at Firehouse Subs. 15 convenient locations around the Midlands. FirehouseSubs.com, and hit up the Firehouse Subs app today.
12 o'clock on your Thursday. Welcome in. It is the halftime show now. Tyler Head with you. Terry Ford will be here fashionably late as always, coming in just a couple of minutes. Lot to get into. This has been a surprisingly busy week on a lot of fronts when it comes to news, not only around South Carolina, but around college football as well. Trust me, he'll share his thoughts on Bill Belichick coming up a little bit later. I'm sure of it. Last night, though, on the SEC Network, if you tuned in for the 2-hour show, we got the schedule for 2025. We already know the opponents for 2025, same SEC opponents as this year, but we didn't know the dates. So last night, because we're all sickos for college football, guess what? We tuned into the SEC Network to sit there and have them list off week by week what games we're going to be taking on place on what week. And boy, we got excited about it because we love anything to do with college football. And we learned what Carolina's schedule is going to be. And I got to say, and kind of we'll certainly break this down as the show goes along, Terry will, I really like how the early season sets up for South Carolina. Of course, you play Virginia Tech in Atlanta. We knew about that as a neutral site game. You'll follow that up with SC State in week number 2. But your first 3 conference games before a bye are Vanderbilt, Missouri. Now, that Missouri game's on the road. And then Kentucky at the end of September before you go on a bye, before you head off to LSU. That's a really favorable way to start the season, especially for Beamer teams that notoriously get out to up and down starts to begin the year, especially with what you're going to be replacing on defense. I really like how this sets up for South Carolina before you get in to the toughest part of your schedule, the meat of your schedule, taking on the LSUs, the Alabamas, and the Ole Misses. So a good chance for Beamer and company to come out of the gate really strong in 2025.
Well, because you hit it, and that's the first thing I thought when I was seeing it play out. Up until Missouri, and who knows, you most likely are going to be favored in every game until you get to Como. And we don't know what Missouri's going to be, right?
Right.
We got no clue.
We don't know what anybody's going to be, quite frankly.
You're going to be favored over Virginia Tech and South Carolina State and Vandy. And we don't know anything about Missouri. And then Kentucky, probably going to be favored over Kentucky, most likely, right?
You should be.
Until you get to Death Valley, you most likely will be favored in every game except Missouri. And again, we don't know.
Right.
And look, right now, most teams aren't even complete yet.
Right.
But the thought process is you've got a good chance of being favored in almost every one of these games except Missouri, because that game is in Columbia, Missouri.
And Como's not treated you well over the years.
You can't ask for a better start, especially, and you hit it perfect, for Beamer's teams struggle in September and parts of October, and then once they get to November, they start to kick it into gear, right?
Right.
So if you can ramp up early with some winnable games and set yourself up with a really nice record before you go into this LSU, Oklahoma, Alabama, Ole Miss gauntlet that you have in front of you at the end, that ain't bad. And 2 of those 4 are at home, right?
Yeah. I mean, you really only have 4 true road games next year, so a lot of games in Willie B.
Yeah, so overall, a lot of times how many times do we sit here and scream and yell about schedule for the home team being, oh my God, the schedule's a bear. Look, every SEC schedule is going to be tough.
Should be.
But this one's not bad, man. Yeah. On paper, as we sit, you and I yapping on December the 12th?
Well, yeah.
It doesn't look bad. Now, again, remember last year we went through that schedule trying to find win number 6, you and I. Remember that one?
Yeah, and here we are sitting at 9 wins with a chance for a 10th one. So
yeah, it's a team conceivably could have won 11, right?
Yep.
So here's what it is. You don't know what you don't know.
Right.
And so you just never really know. We like to talk about this thing because it comes out.
Right.
Gives us something to talk about. But at the end of the day, we got no bleeping clue what's going to happen with this thing as it moves along.
Did you spend the whole 2 hours watching the reveal last night?
I watched about 12 seconds of the reveal.
Okay.
You know what I did? I won't lie. I had it on the background.
Sure.
While I was doing other stuff. And I think the first 5 or 6 weeks kept flashing up. But I had the sound turned so low, I can't tell you what they were saying.
Well, the SEC knows if they put this on TV, we're going to watch.
Oh, yeah.
And this is just the dates. There'll probably be another special for when the times are going to be coming up next summer. And guess what? We're going to watch that too.
But that's smart, right? Like for me, I won't lie. I'm not a schedule reveal guy like when the NFL would have their schedule reveal.
Sure.
I didn't do backflips over that either when I was working like in NFL towns. I would just look at the schedule when it was over. Okay, is it out? Good, I'll look at it.
Yeah.
But I understand why you do this and put it on TV because like you said, your ratings for a schedule reveal show are going to be 4 times bigger than what the normal ratings in that time period.
I was going to say, you could put, I don't know, Tennessee playing a mid-major in men's basketball on at the same time, probably draw about half the audience. Maybe if you're lucky. But a schedule reveal,
right?
You're on a Wednesday night in the middle of December. Yeah, you're getting a good crowd for that.
That
one.
was a perfect landing spot for it, wasn't it?
Absolutely.
Give the TV folks credit.
Hey, TV people aren't stupid. They know what they're doing.
No, and all you do is follow the NFL model.
Oh, exactly.
Now they put everything's on TV. Guys are getting weighed in their underwear. It's on TV.
Exactly. If they were saying Carolina's got the 12-game uniform reveal, 1 hour special on the SC Network, I'll watch.
You're in.
I'm in.
We're
you
all
got
goobers.
Me. We're sickos.
Yes.
Yes,
we are.
College football is a sickness that we're all happily subscribed to. Is that a good way to put it?
Hey, you know what's cool? You see this. You get Alabama and Oklahoma showing up at Williams-Brice. That's a good deal. And Shane, the neutral site, getting to play against Virginia Tech. Obviously, that's got a little personal juice to it for Shane. Kentucky will be here. Vandy will be here. The biggest bear is your trip to Ole Miss, your trip to Baton Rouge.
Right.
That's really the ones where you go, whew, those are going to be tough. And, especially if it's a night game in Death Valley.
Yeah, that's going to be tough. And, man, if you went in there and won in Death Valley at night, you want to talk about a win to be proud of. That would certainly be one.
Because you have the neutral site game, they count as a road game, right? So you really have 3 true roadies: Baton Rouge, Oxford, and Acoma.
By the way, I'm staunchly against neutral site games.
I know.
To start the season. I would much rather them actually be playing in.
I mean, that's what. Look, I get the neutral site game to the TV executives and to the advertising community and all that. It's like a bowl game in August.
And you got 2 programs that can feasibly travel to that pretty easily. So you're getting a lot of tourists for the city. I get why they happen. I still don't like them.
No, I think they're very antiseptic and sterile. Yeah. I don't think they're. Look, there's nothing like a true game where you have a home team and a visitor and you have the craziness of a good home crowd and you're trying to silence them.
Exactly.
That's fun.
Exactly.
Or if your home crowd is there and they've been tailgated up for hours and then they're going to now go in there and get nuts. That's the fun part of football in general, pro, college, whatever.
Right.
And the neutral site game is like, even when you go. I know so many people, though, I've covered Super Bowl weeks, but I've never gone to the game.
Sure.
I've been told by people going to a Super Bowl is the most overrated experience once you're in the stadium watching the game.
Yeah, there's no atmosphere.
No atmosphere at all.
And it's a bunch of rich people that may not even have a rooting interest in the game that they're just there because they can go.
They're there because they can go, or someone's there because they got invited by some big wig who got the tickets from somebody. It's just not the same.
Exactly.
It's not the same. So but that's going to count as a road game. And then you have the three roadies to Oxford, to Missouri, and also off to Baton Rouge. So all in all, you look at the schedule right now, again on December the 12th, you go, you know what? That's not bad. Especially with the expectations that are coming for 2025.
Now we can spend the entire offseason projecting and speculating on what this is going to be, and there's probably going to be at least a couple teams on the schedule that are way better or way worse than we actually think they are going to be.
Do you think Alabama marked the Vanderbilt game as a loss this year?
They should.
Do you think they marked that trip to Norman, Oklahoma as a loss halfway through the year?
No.
No, not at all.
Preston also pointed this out to me. Apparently the Alabama game is homecoming.
Why?
I don't know. Why would you do that?
I wouldn't do that.
You got Vanderbilt and
how about Coastal
Kentucky,
Carolina?
Coastal Carolina. You got a lot of options. I wouldn't have put, and now this is according to Preston, I didn't see it, but if that's true, why? Don't do that.
I wouldn't do that. Because, but Kalen DeBoer wouldn't use this as motivation.
Not at all. And look.
No, we're a homecoming game.
Alabama's not as scary as they once were, but I don't want to add any fuel to that fire.
They still got a lot of guys who can play football pretty well.
Certainly do.
Yeah, I wouldn't do that. You know what? I probably would.
Don't poke the bear.
No, I think I would reevaluate my homecoming if I was scheduling Alabama for my homecoming.
Yeah,
just saying.
For sure.
Yep. Hey, thanks for hanging out there, bud.
Yeah,
Appreciate
absolutely.
you. Why don't you go sleep now?
I got to get my breaks done now.
You get your breaks done?
Yeah, adult things, right?
You have to go adult?
Yeah, I have to go adult.
You just can't go take a nap?
No, I can't. I wish I could.
Well, you'll be there. You'll only be there to get your breaks done for about 2 hours.
I hope it's not that long. God.
Mr. Head, we found these other 10 things wrong with your car. Let's talk about this.
Yeah, I know how these kind of things go.
Well, good luck. Pulling for you.
We'll see. I'll let you know how long it takes.
Let me know. Good deal. Tyler, who filled in for Bill today on the morning show, go and get his brakes fixed. Should be exciting. Maybe he can call in and give us a report from the brake shop. All right, we'll talk, obviously, more about the SEC schedule reveal that happened last night and what the whole world, the sports world, the football world, is talking about. The greatest head coach in the history of the NFL is going to coach the North Carolina Tar Heels. Not going to lie. Didn't really see that coming. Even when I was hearing about it, up until, what time was it yesterday when I was like, oh my God, this is actually going to happen? At first thought, you go, this is asinine and ridiculous and stupid and idiotic. But is it? We'll talk about that on the show. And obviously, again, a lot about the SEC schedule that came out. And look, I'm not going to sit here and predict the schedule now. It's December 12th. We don't know who the starting defensive line is going to be at South Carolina, the starting linebackers, the starting wide receivers, the starting running back. We got no clue with any of those things. To sit here and predict the schedule makes no sense. You don't know, for an example, who's going to be the starting quarterback at Vandy. Will it be Diego Pavia or somebody else? Who's the starting quarterback at Missouri, for that matter? Kentucky, who their starting quarterback will be. LSU, Garrett Nussmeier is coming back from what I saw today, so at least you know that at LSU. Who's going to be the starting quarterback at Oklahoma? Will it be the kid Hawkins or somebody else through the transfer portal? You know, Ole Miss, they've got question marks. Remember, that was a portal-built team for 2024. We don't know anything about anything. So to sit here and predict the schedule, I mean, people do it, and I'm not going to dog them. I will not be one of them, but we will kind of go through and talk more about the 2025 schedule as well. So we have a lot to do, and we'll get to it. At 803-404-6100, your thoughts on the schedule. Feel free. On the Love Chevy phone line, Firehouse sub text line, your thoughts on Bill Belichick, the head coach at North Carolina? Yeah. We got a lot to talk about. It is the halftime show. Our good buddy, Captain Dave, is here for a little bit just to keep us on the air. We appreciate him. And we will roll this baby till 3 here on The Game. Halftime show here on the game. Terry Ford, glad you could be hanging. Captain Dave's here punching buttons as we roll till 3. Come a little bit, we'll cut into some Lamont Paris sound. Lamont on Carolina Calls last night with Derek Scott, talking about where the Gamecocks are right now on the men's side. It's gotten better. Nice win over East Carolina. Started slow, then really got cooking in the second half. You hope you can carry that momentum moving forward. You got Clemson coming up. So we'll get some Lamont Paris on the show as well. And we're obviously going to get to the biggest story of the day in sports, especially college sports, NFL, football. Bill Belichick, the head coach at North Carolina. That just sounds weird. The head coach of the North Carolina Tar Heels, Bill Belichick. We're going to dive into it a little bit. There's a bunch of different angles on this thing. Because, again, at first glance, it makes no sense. Let's dig into it a little bit. Does it make sense? Maybe it doesn't after we finish digging into it. But my first thought was this. And then we'll get back to the schedule, and then we'll dig more into the Belichick in a little bit. I really believe Bill Belichick, his people were hitting the back channels in the NFL. There's, 3 openings right now, and there's most likely going to be an opening in Jacksonville. Might be a coach GM opening in Jacksonville. And Bill probably wasn't getting the response he was hoping for. We'd love to talk to Bill. Oh, yeah, we'd love to hand the keys to the organization to Bill. Bill knows how to win. Bill can build a winning culture for us. We can start going to the playoffs and win Super Bowls with Bill. Bill's the greatest head coach ever. Look, Bill's the greatest all-around football guy ever. He was the GM in New England. Wasn't hearing that. So, I think one, probably aggravated Belichick. Because again, think about it. Think about being the best ever at your job. And then you're out of a job. And your phone ain't ringing. Weird, right? You'd be mad. You'd be looking at your industry going, bleep you. So Belichick wasn't, or his agent or his people weren't getting the feedback they were hoping for. And Bill's done a lot to try to, friendly up his image and show he has a personality, and he does shower, and, he wears more than just a sleeveless hoodie every day. Bill's been on a bunch of different shows this year, trying to show some personality, trying to remake himself, reinvent himself a little bit, because a lot of these coaches who were out of work have gone on, network television and rebuilt their image and got offered a gig. But I think Bill's not just wanting a gig. Belichick wants to come in and control everything like in New England, or at least have some semblance of control or some semblance of say. And I really believe, too, the last few years with the Patriots kind of tarnished Bill's rep. Brady leaves, goes to Tampa, wins a Super Bowl. Bill makes the playoffs one time, and the whole thing craters. They totally bungled the offensive coordinator position by bringing in 2 of his old cronies, Matt Patricia and Joe Judge, who combined have as much experience running an offense as I do. And just everything in New England, it just looked like Bill was stuck in his ways, out of touch, not wanting to evolve, just building himself a crew, again, of cronies. And it wasn't successful. And really, the thing that made that engine go was Tom Brady. Now, whether that's fair or not, everybody's got their own opinion. I think Brady needed Belichick and Belichick needed Brady to reach the heights that they did. Again, I don't think Tom Brady's winning 8 Super Bowls with Bruce Arians. And I think Bruce Arians is a hell of a coach, but I just don't think Brady would be doing that with Bruce Arians in the way he won with Belichick. Belichick's a high-level NFL mind, football mind. I think he just screwed up the quarterback position, and he misevaluated how much different that position is from every other position on the field, and it bit him in the butt. And then I do think he fell into cronyism. But I think Bill went to college because he wasn't getting the answers he wanted from the NFL. And he was angry about it, and he was kind of confused about it. And he realized no one was going to let him run the show, have any kind of semblance of control he would like. So where's the one place you can go and have total control? College. Remember, the football coach is the GM, the director of player personnel, the president of football operations. He's all of it. Right in Bill's wheelhouse, right? Sure. Bill's around the college game with his son at UW. His son was on the defensive staff at Washington with the Huskies. And Bill said, I can do this. This is where I'll go. I'll control everything. I'll be in charge. I'll get to do what I want. We'll be big-time successful. These kids will love me. I'll show them my 8 rings. I'll tell them I know how to get them into the NFL and get them drafted. I'll get them prepared. Oh, this is like stealing. We'll get to the SEC schedule after I throw out this. There's a song back in the 90s, a country song done by Alan Jackson, was called Gone Country. Country was massively popular in the 90s. Garth Brooks, Reba McEntire, George Strait, Dwight Yoakam. There was country stations everywhere. Country music was selling a ton. There was country line dance bars everywhere. And Alan Jackson, who was obviously massively popular, like all those folks I just stated, Alan Jackson did a song called Gone Country. Basically, all these other, rock star. He's a washed-up rock star. I'll go country. Washed-up pop star. I'll go country. Songwriter can't get his songs on pop radio, top 40 radio. I'll go country. It's almost like Bill's gone college. I can do this college thing. This is easy. I was in the NFL. College was our JV. It's our farm system. I can go coach there. Look how good I was in the NFL. I can tear up this college thing. That's easy. Might not be as easy as you think, Bill. We'll get into it. I think there's a road for Belichick to be successful. Is he going to take it? We'll find out. But I do think there is a road for Bill to do this and do it well. We'll get into that in a little bit. I just think, where can you go control everything? Be a college football head coach. And if the NFL was loving on him the way he wanted to be loved on, this would never be happening. But anyway. All right, on the SEC schedule, Dave, I'm going to throw a curveball at you. Here's Shane Beamer. He was on the schedule reveal last night. Let's get cut 18. Shane's least favorite place to play. Cut 18, Dave.
Oh, man. Well, I haven't been to LSU or Ole Miss as a head coach, only as an assistant. I know both those places are challenging. A&M, obviously, their stadium speaks for itself as well. What a great environment, great stadium. For me, I mean, it's just the first one. I know it's coach speak. We'll worry about them one at a time. But I believe our first away game, true away game, is at Missouri, which we've never won at since I've been the head coach. We went out there in 21 and 23 and lost. And I know Coach Drinkwitz and the Missouri Tigers, they were undefeated at home this past season. So we know that'll be a big challenge, and all of them are. There's every road a venue is tough. As a head coach, I look at it when you look at hotels and the logistics and how easy is it to fly in and out. And some places are a lot tougher than others. There's no question about it, but they're all challenging in this league.
No, good answer. Good answer. Way not to make anybody mad. Good job. But yeah, I mean, that's one thing. You hear people talk about the SEC, and you go on the road in the SEC. I mean, even going to Vanderbilt this year was tougher than anybody thought. But typically that's a crowd that's, you're not, oh man, it's crazy at Vandy. No, but besides Vanderbilt, to be fair, you're going to run into stuff on the road in the SEC. Nobody ever thinks about Missouri. Oh my gosh, you don't want to roll into Columbia, Missouri. But again, it's a weird trip. They have been good the last couple of years. The atmosphere has been better at home games. So it's very tough to find an easy spot, except, Nashville for Vanderbilt. They all can have their challenges. They just can. I mean, look, no one talks about this. They love their hogs in Fayetteville. That place gets crazy. All these venues and environments have, their share of challenges. I remember, what was that, 2 years ago at SEC Media Day? You got to watch what you say about playing in certain places. Because you'll say the right thing, everybody gets mad. So Shane had the right answer there. Good work, Coach. All right, halftime show. Terry Ford, David Dare. We'll get to do some more yapping about the SEC schedule reveal. We'll hear from Shane talking about playing that Virginia Tech opener. That's coming up next. Obviously, that means something to him because obviously where his dad was for many, many, many years. We'll hear that next and let you know what's happening in case you just woke up. Terry Ford, David Dare, halftime show right here on The Game. We've talked about the SEC schedule reveal from last night. South Carolina, what's going on with the Gamecocks regarding their SEC schedule. And really the overall schedule now that you've seen. Again, we're not going to sit here and do one-loss record because I don't, again, these teams aren't complete. There are people who do it. God love you. Pick and predict away, but I like to wait till at least the teams are kind of like, I don't know, put together. But I think the schedule just on the surface right now as we yap together on December 12th, I feel like it's a pretty good schedule for the Gamecocks, especially with all the expectation that we're going to have here in Columbia for South Carolina in 2025. Coming off a 9-3, playmaking young quarterback, some other pieces, the success that this coaching staff had, not only with recruiting, but in the portal. Yeah. It's a good feeling for South Carolina. Then when you look at the schedule and you get the idea that you're going to have the bulk of your really difficult games, it feels like in theory, late in the year. And maybe you can build some momentum early and then see where it goes from there. Again, obviously, you open up with Virginia Tech, a game that means a lot to Shane because he spent some time in Blacksburg. His dad coached there for a long, long time, very successfully. Here's Shane last night on the schedule reveal show, Cut 16, Dave. Here's Shane talking about playing Virginia Tech in the opener.
Yeah, it'll be different. There's no question about it. That game was scheduled, I believe, when I got the job here at South Carolina. It was already on the books and knew it was coming. But it'll be exciting. Obviously, a place with great memories that my dad and what he did there. I'm sure there's going to be quite a bit of talk over the next 8-9 months leading up to that game. But it'll be fun. Got a lot of great friends there. Brent Pry was a graduate assistant on the coaching staff when I was a player at Virginia Tech, and got a ton of respect for their program. And it'll certainly be different, hearing that Virginia Tech fight song and seeing a lot of maroon and orange along with a lot of garnet and black in the stands that day.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, it's a neutral site game. You're not going to Blacksburg. There should be a lot of garnet and black, and Virginia Tech in the past has traveled very well. So it'll be interesting. Fun little neutral site game. South Carolina, my guess is, should be favored over a Virginia Tech team that this year was an underachiever. Brent Pine, the head coach, who I believe was on the staff for Shane's dad a bit at Virginia Tech. There was a lot of expectation for the Hokies this year. And remember, they lost to Vanderbilt right out the gate in overtime. Never could get their footing. Drones, their quarterback, who a real good dual threat quarterback, had some injury issues. It couldn't get it together this year, Virginia Tech. Some people thought they were a dark horse contender to win the ACC. So we'll see what happens in 2025 and how Virginia Tech loads up the roster. But they were a bit of an underachiever this year in the ACC. And obviously South Carolina, big overachiever in the SEC. So a very interesting game to open the year, August 31st in Atlanta. So, I mean, look, all these schedules in the SEC are tough and difficult. And you're just running back the schedule from last year, flipping home and away and things of that nature. So, again, it's not going to be the same because teams change from year to year. The schedule Texas had this year that we all said, wow, that's cake for an SEC team. I mean, they'll run it back, but it doesn't mean it's going to be still as easy. But, schedule reveal just showed you, for the most part, what dates all this was going to go on. But it is interesting if you talk about Texas and the schedule, because it was very light. You look at it this year in the SEC. Mississippi State going to be better next year, you hope. Oklahoma's going to be better. Well, they better be, or they'll be looking for a new head coach at the end of next year. Georgia's Georgia, man. Vandy, Your guess is they will. It depends on Diego Pavia. Can he, through the courts, get another year of eligibility? If he can, he kind of willed Vanderbilt to 6-6 last year. Remember, Vanderbilt in Austin played a 3-point game with Texas. It feels like Florida might actually be better under Billy Napier. We'll see. Arkansas, I don't know. Under Sam Pittman. I mean, Uncle Sam's back, which I'm happy for him. We'll see how Arkansas stocks their squad. Kentucky, they got to be better, right? Whew. Ugh. I think A&M will be better in year 2 under Mike Elko. So it might not be as cupcakey as it was last year, but still, you're only playing. You're not playing Bama. Not playing Tennessee. Didn't get LSU. Not getting Carolina. Not getting Ole Miss. Interesting. So anyway, we'll look more at the schedule as we move forward. And we'll also take a look at it later as we start to see more complete teams. Because they're not complete as of this time. All right, here's more Shane. Dave, get ready with your finger on the button there, buddy. Here's Shane talking about Cut 17, the standouts on the 2025 Gamecock schedule.
Challenging. That's just what life is in the SEC. It's challenging for us every year, Alyssa, just because we play Clemson at the end of the season. We've got Virginia Tech, another Power 4 team at the beginning of the season. And then, as always, a really, really, really challenging SEC schedule. So, the thing that, jumps out, there's a lot that jumps out, but certainly this year, because of the schedule, and we know that next year is the same, just the locations are flipped. It was a very former SEC West heavy schedule. And then that's basically what the month of October is, if I'm not mistaken. It's like Ole Miss, LSU, Alabama, Oklahoma, 4 in a row there in the middle of the season as well. So that'll be challenging, some challenging road spots. But just like last year or this past season, our fans were so excited to go visit Norman, Oklahoma and Tuscaloosa, Alabama. I know Gamecock Nation will be excited about making a trip to LSU and then going back to Oxford, which we haven't been to since, I think, 2020, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, and really only 3 true road games with the neutral site contest with Virginia Tech. And yeah, it's look, Missouri was undefeated last year at home. LSU, it's always tough to play the Tigers in Baton Rouge, especially if it's a night game. Ole Miss is a really good program under Lane Kiffin. You got to roll to the Grove in Oxford to take on the Rebels, and then you go back to Texas A&M. So that's the way this thing rolls itself out in 2025. To me, the beginning of it's nice. With Virginia Tech, you should be favored. South Carolina State favored. Vanderbilt, you should be favored. You go to Missouri, probably not favored there. Favored at home against Kentucky. So out of the first 5, you should be favored in 4 of them. And you could be 4-1, 5-0 conceivably, coming off an open date and going to Baton Rouge. So, and you have the 4 home games, and I said 3 road. They have 4 road games. You're at Missouri, at LSU, at Ole Miss, at A&M. I misspoke. So you have the 4. You have the 4 on the road, and then you have the neutral site game with Virginia Tech. But College Station's not easy to play. Obviously, never easy to play there. So, schedule is not. I mean, it could be a lot worse. It could be. We've looked at it before, going, ooh. So on December 12th, you go, that's all right. It's okay, especially that first run from August 31st until October 11th. You might be able to get some momentum in, and then you're going to at LSU, Oklahoma home, Alabama home, at Ole Miss, at Texas A&M. But remember, this year we talked about this gauntlet that South Carolina went on, and look how well they played in that big gauntlet in 2024. So you never really know what you don't know. You just speculate, and we give us something to talk about on December 12th as we're waiting for a bowl game and the transfer portal's open. Speaking of that, Gamecock Central talking about a former 5-star recruit is going to visit South Carolina among his visits. We'll get into that, and also our Firehouse sub text the hour at 803-404-6100. Halftime show with Terry Ford, David Dare. We're hanging here on the game. All right, time for our Firehouse Subtext of the hour. Also, give away some men's basketball tickets. We got that coming up here in a little bit. Dave loves giving away tickets. Give away 3 pair, baby. Well, coming up here in just a little bit, 3 pair of men's basketball tickets before the top of the hour. So that's for USC Upstate this Saturday, 2 p.m. tip. You can hear it right here on the Game in Columbia and also our affiliate in Myrtle Beach, 1:30 pregame. All right, Firehouse Subtext the hour. This is so good. Unnamed texter. College football schedule. One of the reasons I'm divorced. Worth it. If you watch that college football schedule show, this marriage is over. Sure going to miss you, sweetheart. Thanks for the memories. Excellent. Excellent. Because most guys would sit there, right? I got to do what's best for the marriage. I guess I'll just DVR it and watch it later when she's asleep. Yeah. Text her. Yeah. We'll watch a college football schedule drop. But it was a good time. Really, really going to miss you. Always appreciate the texting, 803-404-6100 Firehouse Subtext line. Let's go to the Love Chevy phone line. Get our buddy Gamecock Larry in here. Larry, my friend, you're on the halftime show in the game. How you doing, man?
Still hanging in there. But Terry, Tyler, and Captain Dave, Gamecock Nation, you don't go on the football field expecting to lose. I checked the schedule this morning at about 4:30, and I looked down that schedule, and we're going to go 12-0. 12-0. Clemson going to go down by 17 to Texas, and we going to be all right. But I want to tell everybody on 107.5, I love you. I'm taking it easy, and everything is going to be all right. We going to go 12-0. Oh, and I believe Georgia might pull out this NCAA championship, and I don't like Ohio State, and I don't like Tennessee. I wish both of them could lose, but they can't. I love y'all, and go Gamecocks.
All right, thank you, Larry. Hang in there, my friend. We're thinking about you. Larry likes Georgia. I can see that. I mean, obviously, we got to see what's happening with Carson Beck, their starting quarterback, but obviously Georgia's loaded. They haven't played like Georgia this year consistently. Every now and then they pop up and play like Georgia, but not every week. I mean, Ole Miss physically manhandled them in Oxford, but then Georgia manhandled Texas at Texas. They beat Texas twice. It's been a weird year for the Bulldogs, but obviously if Beck's healthy and can play, they got a legit shot to win. You watched Oregon against Penn State, and I've seen Oregon a few times this year. And obviously the Ducks are really good. Offensively, they're just stupid. They're efficient. They got playmakers. I really like Dylan Gabriel, their quarterback. He's accurate in those short intermediate areas. And, defensively, they got guys who can run around and hit you. But my biggest thing with Oregon is how they're going to handle physicality at the line of scrimmage on defense. Penn State started to run the ball down their throat. Boise State ran the ball down their throat after a bit. If they get a bad matchup where a team is going to run the football on them and they start doing it successfully, that could be a bad formula for Oregon. The thing that's interesting about this playoff is, everybody's got you can beat them by doing this. It's not a lot of, that team, I don't know if anybody can beat them. Or we're definitely going to see these two teams in the championship game because they're so far better than everybody else. No. I think Tennessee can go to Columbus and beat Ohio State. Ohio State's teetering, man. They are teetering. I've never seen a team, it feels like, has less juice or want to be playing in the college football playoff. That loss to a mediocre Michigan team, I mean, they got kicked so hard in the lower region, I don't know if they can stand up to play the game against Tennessee. You've seen the Vols. That defense is no joke. They go flying around. They can run the football. That offense, Ohio State hasn't gone up against an offense like this. I'm not talking about passing it because, Nico's been hit and miss as a passer. But the way Tennessee runs the ball, the way they spread you out, makes your box light on defense, and they just run the ball at you with Dylan Sampson. Tennessee can win this game, especially if Ohio State comes out and they're still screwed up in the head over the Michigan loss. All right, right now, 803-404-6100. Callers number 3, 4, and 5. Each win a pair of tickets to go check out the men against USC Upstate Saturday, 2 o'clock tip. Again, callers number 3, 4, and 5 win right now at 803-404-6100. It's a halftime show. Terry Ford, appreciate you hanging out here on the game. Halftime show. Terry Ford, happy you could be hanging out with us as we are rolling up until 3 here on the game. Schedule's out, obviously. South Carolina. Neutral site game, obviously, with Virginia Tech. 4 on the road to Baton Rouge, to Columbia, Missouri, to the Grove, and also to College Station. Early season, conceivably, you set up to get some momentum. We'll see how it plays out. If you haven't seen it yet, Virginia Tech, my guess is South Carolina will be favored. South Carolina State, Gamecocks will be favored. Vandy coming to Williams-Brice. Again, we don't know if Diego Pavia is the quarterback or not, but regardless, South Carolina should be favored at home against Vanderbilt. On the road at Missouri, depending on how Missouri restacks their squad. Missouri undefeated last year at home. South Carolina could be a dog there, but then favored at home against Kentucky before the open date, October 4th. So South Carolina, should be favored in 4 of their 5 games at the very least. So not a bad start to the schedule. Then you have, obviously, 2 open dates. You have the open date, then you go to Baton Rouge to face LSU, Oklahoma, Alabama at home. Then to Ole Miss. Then another open date, and you finish up at A&M, home against Coastal, home against Clemson. So, again, every SEC schedule is tough. But if it's going to be tough, this feels okay for, you got Alabama and Oklahoma, but those games are here. Obviously, you have Clemson at home. The tough road, and look, the road games, Missouri had a winning record this past year. LSU, people forget they actually did have a winning record. Ole Miss, they underachieved, but again, a 9-win team, and you go to A&M and a team that won 8 games in the regular season. So all 4 of these roadies are set up against what should be good programs, you think. So it's only 4 true road games you have. Not the easiest of the lot, but South Carolina this year was very good on the road. They were a play away from being undefeated on the road if they could have finished the deal against Alabama. So a very good road team this year. So that's kind of the schedule if you haven't had a chance to check it out. All right, a couple notes from the transfer portal for South Carolina. Gabriel Brownlow-Dindy, former 5-star defensive line prospect. He was in A&M's historic class a couple of years ago. Dindy now is looked at as the 88th rated overall prospect in the transfer portal, number 7 defensive lineman in the rankings. He's got 3 years of eligibility left, according to Gamecock Central. 6'3", 310. Played just 8 games at Texas A&M, but a lot of upside on Gabriel Brownlow-Dindy. Florida kid, had an offer from Carolina out of high school. End up at A&M. He will visit Vanderbilt this weekend. Also, North Carolina and Alabama are on the itinerary at some point. But also a visit for Brownlow-Dindy to South Carolina next week. That's according to On3's Hayes Fawcett. Another name in the portal to keep an eye on, according to Gamecock Central. Josiah Trotter from Philly. Gamecocks recruited Trotter out of high school in 2023. Yes, he is the son of Jeremiah Trotter, who played in the NFL with the Eagles. And he's the brother of Jeremiah Trotter Jr., who played at Clemson and is now in the NFL. He still has multiple years of eligibility left as well. Trotter had a nice season last year. And, of course, you got to restock the linebacker room because you lost everybody. Or I should say lost all your starters. Debo, gone. Demetrius Knight, gone. Ben Martin Scott, gone. So you're hoping like Fred Johnson can step up. Maybe Willis can help out this year. Didn't see him much in 2024. But you need some help in the linebacker room. So we'll see what happens there. But you will be seeing linebackers coming through the portal to South Carolina, no doubt. That's the latest on some of the portal news. Other stories in college football as we go football in the 1 o'clock hour, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors. Well, it happened Barry Odom moved on from UNLV to take the Purdue gig, which is interesting. If Barry Odom continues to evolve as a head coach, this might be a pretty good hire for Purdue. Odom evolved at UNLV. I mean, he was, playing a fancy, different type of outside-the-box offense. UNLV had 2 really good years under Barry Odom. Had the quarterback thing that went on with Matthew Skura. But UNLV, after that, I think, after that whole deal happened and, Skura was gone and you moved up your second-string quarterback, UNLV was still really good. And remember, they played for the Mountain West Championship and basically was looked as a playing game for the college football playoff against Boise State. Lost that game on the blue in Boise. So Barry Odom gone. He's at Purdue. Dan Mullen, I'll say it one more time, Dan Mullen is now the new head coach at UNLV, according to reports, or will be the new head coach at UNLV. And that works good. You remember, Mullen's not a huge fan of recruiting, or he didn't used to be. But Mullen, this is kind of the place. Like, remember, Mississippi State. Mullen recruited a bunch of under-the-radar guys, some 3-stars. He wasn't a crazy recruiter. He was more about development and teaching. And that worked great at Mississippi State. Remember when they spent a week at number 1 in the country in the Dak Prescott era? But then Mullen landed at Florida. The cupboard was more full than people thought. Mullen used Jim McElvain's recruits. 10-win season, SEC championship game. Then things went sideways. We'll see what Mullen's going to be now. Again, the world's different. Transfer portal's a thing. NIL's a thing. And as Mullen understood that, you know what? I just can't be sitting here thinking I'm some offensive guru genius that can just develop and teach guys and they're automatically going to be better than the other team on Saturdays. Maybe Mullen's learned, much as I really don't have a taste for recruiting, it's kind of important. Whether it's through the portal, whether it is the old-fashioned way, high school, JUCO, whatever. We'll see what Mullen's like now. How much did you learn and how much did you evolve your couple years doing TV? We'll see. But Dan Mullen will be the new head coach at UNLV, according to reports. We got a couple of these. Let's go back home and try it again for the sake of the kids' deals. Rich Rodriguez going back to West Virginia. Scott Frost going back to Central Florida. And, I get both, right? Since these 2 guys have left, your football program has dropped. You want to recapture the magic of Scott Frost at Central Florida and Rich Rodriguez at West Virginia. Out of the 2, I think Rich Rod has a better chance to recapture his magic, even though I don't think either one's going to be as successful the second time around. Matter of fact, the only coach that was really successful coming back to a school for the second coaching trip was Bill Snyder at Kansas State. He's a Hall of Fame coach. With Rich Rod, he left West Virginia. Things went at Michigan. Things went at Arizona. Rich Rod had to do a little TV, was an assistant coach, had to kind of push some of the stuff, especially the off-the-field stuff, kick it down the road a bit so he could rehabilitate himself. Then he got the head coaching gig at Jacksonville State, did a really nice job there, did Rich Rod. 9 wins, 2 straight seasons, just won a conference championship. West Virginia wants to get back to being what West Virginia was under Rich Rod. They haven't been anywhere near as good consistently since Rodriguez left. That was an ugly divorce. It really was. It was nasty ugly. West Virginia went to court about the Rodriguez's buyout. Michigan paid X amount of money. Rodriguez made payments to pay it back. It was not pretty. Well, West Virginia wants to win again. Rich Rodriguez wants to get back in a Power 4 league again. This works. But what Rich Rodriguez did at West Virginia, remember, he was a win over Pitt away from playing for the national championship. The thing that happened now, or has happened since Rodriguez was at West Virginia the first time, remember, Rich Rod was kind of an innovator with that spread offense where you ran the ball. You spread them out and ran it. A lot of teams do it now. It's not so cool and new and shiny and, wow, how do we stop this thing? A lot of teams do it. A lot of teams have been working on trying to stop it. Do I think Rich Rodriguez is going to have a winning record at West Virginia? Yeah, I think Rich Rodriguez is a good football coach. Is he going to be as successful as he was the first time in Morgantown? My guess would be no. He would not be. But Rich Rodriguez back in Morgantown. Scott Frost at Central Florida, remember, they were, quote unquote, in their mind, the national champions, wink, wink, going undefeated. Scott Frost had a couple of really good years at Central Florida, and he used that to head home and coach his alma mater in Nebraska. And how'd that go? Ooh. Ooh. So Frost, looking for a job. Central Florida wants to get back to those good old days. So they hire the guy that got him there in the first place. And look, Scott Frost did a hell of a job at Central Florida. He took a program that was not in very good shape and turned it around fast. So I give Frost props. But now Central Florida is in the Big 12. Whole different animal. Out of the two, I think Rich Rod will do better than Scott Frost. Rich Rod, I just think he's won. Remember his beginning of his time in Arizona, he did really well. It just things started going the crapper. Then when we had the off the field stuff and that woman he's with is not his wife stuff. But Rich Rodriguez, I think, went to the Fiesta Bowl in the first 3 years at Arizona. And Scott Frost was everything just. Was it like a perfect storm for Frost at Central Florida the first time through? I don't know. We'll see. Not winning in Nebraska at all surprised me. I thought Scott Frost was a great hire at Nebraska. I really did. And it obviously didn't work out. They were like, 2-500 in close games? But we'll see what happens with Scott Frost back at Central Florida. But I think Rich Rodriguez... He'll get West Virginia back to being a consistent winning program. I don't think they're going to be battling for a national championship, but I think things will get better in Morgantown with Rich Rod. So we got Dan Mullen at UNLV, Rich Rodriguez at West Virginia, Scott Frost at Central Florida. But hey, you know what? We got Bill Belichick. Bill Belichick at North Carolina. We talked a little bit about it earlier. And we'll continue, obviously, to have conversations about it. This was interesting, though. NC State quarterback C.J. Bailey was asked to chime in. Obviously, NC State not really have a whole lot of like for North Carolina. Here's what C.J. Bailey said about Bill Belichick being the head coach of the Tar Heels.
I seen it, man. Shoot. Bill Belichick can get it too, man. We go 5 years. We go. And no matter who the coach is for UNC, we go kick them.
What would that mean to you, though? That you could potentially
it means
be
a lot.
Bill Belichick?
I actually that means a lot that I could play against Bill Belichick. Meet him. But shoot, if he comes to play, we go kill him. We're gonna kill him.
What are you supposed to say, right? We can't beat them. They'll have Bill Belichick. No, yeah, come on, Bill. We'll give you a little something. Have some of this. Have some of this, Bill. The one thing with Belichick, I really believe, if he wants to be successful at this, one of the things he has to hire a young staff. You can't bring in your cronies, your Matt Patricias, your Joe Judges, your Josh McDaniels. No, you got to get a young staff of guys who can relate to the players and can go out on the trail and do the grind of recruiting. That's what you got to do. I think, again, Bill Belichick's an X's and O's genius. He sets culture. He's a leader. He's been massively successful. He'll have a team prepared. It's just you're relating to 18 to 22-year-olds for the most part. It's different. It's different. But if he can go start with that, that would be the beginning of where he could possibly be successful. It's football in the 1 o'clock hour, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors. Are there any NFL head coaches who just went from the NFL to college and they were successful? We'll talk about that here on the Halftime Show on The Game. Halftime show. Terry Ford, glad you can hang out with us as we roll this baby up until 3 on the game. Football in the 1 o'clock hour, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors. You know, we've talked a lot about the schedule reveal for South Carolina. And, again, SEC schedules always are tough. 4 tough road trips, to be honest. Baton Rouge is never easy. College Station's never easy. You know, last year Missouri goes undefeated at home. And you're going to the Grove to take on a good Ole Miss team. But in the year, out of the first 5 games, you should be favored in 4 of the first 5. Conceivably. So that's a nice way to get the year started with some momentum. So we've talked about that. A little transfer portal stuff. By the way, Connor Wegman, who was a starting quarterback beginning of last year for Texas A&M, former 5-star kid who lost his starting job to Marcel Reed, hit the portal, will be going to Houston, where he'll get every opportunity to be the starting quarterback of the Cougars. They're in year 2 of Willie Fritz regime there in Houston. I mean, Fritz tore it up at Tulane. We'll see, how long it takes him to get it going in Houston if he can. But Connor Wegman, a lot of ability, a lot of physical ability. A lot of people thought he just needed a new start and get out of College Station. Last year, when healthy, Wegman was good. This year, he struggled. That's how he lost his gig, and he couldn't stay healthy again. But Connor Wegman going to give it a shot at University of Houston. That just came out, I think, earlier today. All right, so Bill Belichick, going off to North Carolina. We talked about this in the last segment. You got to get some younger assistant coaches who understand and can deal and relate to young people. No offense to Bill at 72. No one's saying Bill can't talk to anybody under the age of 60. We're not saying that. We're saying we don't know if Bill Belichick can go recruiting. We don't know what he's going to be like in the living room, at the high school field. We don't know. I don't think, look, we joke about, the hoodie's personality, that the hood he's wearing that he hasn't washed in 6 months has got more personality than him. But there are people who'll tell you that's not the case. If you get Belichick away from the media and the cameras and all that side of football, he's got more of a personality than you think. Now, is he tough? Sure. Does he hold guys accountable? Yes. Do dudes have to follow rules? Yes. Can he be rigid about those type of things? Absolutely. But they say he can actually make a joke and smile and laugh. I know. Weird. But how is he going to relate day in and day out with the 18 to 22-year-olds? How's he going to recruit? Can he be that closer? Or does he have to hire some sharp recruiters? Because, Bill's about X's and O's and coaching ball. Building culture, being a leader, being a winner. How can he translate what he did in the NFL to college? Never coached in college. And there's not a lot of guys who have been successful. We always say the college coaches can't go to the NFL because they can't. Except very few. Like Jimmy Johnson was successful. Jim Harbaugh was successful. But there's not that many coaches who have gone from college with no pro coaching experience and have crushed it as a head coach in the NFL. It's two different worlds. But it's the same thing when they go from the NFL to college. Again, Jim Harbaugh has been successful at it. But Jim, remember, was a college coach before he went to the NFL. So he had coaching experience. He came back to college, and he was a college coach before, so it's not like he had never coached in college when he went to Michigan. And he had been an assistant coach in the NFL before he went to the NFL. So Harbaugh had a vast, versatile resume when it came to experience. I'm looking for a guy, though, who has never coached in college, who went from the NFL as a head coach to college, and Herm Edwards comes up on the list. Herm won Herm had some winning seasons. He had 3. Of course, the NCAA vacated wins because, again, that's a way to punish somebody. Stupid. Herm had, I think, a couple 8-win seasons, a 7-win season. Problem is, there were these rules. Herm went, who cares, rules? Some of them were the little dorky NCAA rules, but some they're rules. Herm didn't really care. And Arizona State got into a lot of trouble. Herm's got a show cause. Not that he ever wants to coach in college again. But Herm is one. Jim Mora, I believe, is another. Jim Mora was a head coach in Atlanta, in Seattle, went off to UCLA. His first 3 years were good, averaged about 10 wins a season, then had back-to-back losing seasons at UCLA and was done. But Jim Mora had some success. So, but again, Jim Mora was younger. He kind of always had some sparkle to his personality. Herm Edwards, Herm, you play to win the game. Herm has a lot of personality. So you think, okay, maybe it's a weird hire, but maybe you can connect with college players. Jim Mora was young enough, maybe you can connect with college players. Neither one were 72 years old. Herm wasn't young, don't get me wrong, but he wasn't as old as Belichick. So, to me, a lot of people just are like, this could never work. It can work. It can work. But Bill's got to understand that it's so different in college. And there are no rules right now. There are rules in the NFL. There's a CBA. There are clear rules in the NFL. College is craziness. Craziness. And we all call it the Wild Wild West. One guy I heard say it's not the Wild Wild West. In the Wild Wild West, they actually had sheriffs and marshals. There's none of that in college. It's everybody for themselves. So can Bill adjust to it and relate to a lot younger age of player? I think we're giving Belichick too little credit, but I don't think he's giving enough credit to how difficult the college game is. If you saw like his thing with Pat McAfee, we're gonna be making sure that we have a high level of nutrition for the athletes. They already do that, Bill. All the things Bill was bringing up, it's like, Bill, they already do that. You know how much money is pumping into these big time programs, Bill? So I think Bill looks at it like, it's college. This is nothing. See what I did in the NFL? This is going to be easy. It's a whole different world. But Bill went to a place that's a sleeping giant, North Carolina. We've always talked about this with the Tar Heels. That football program should be consistently really good. And Mac Brown had some good years, but North Carolina should be better than they've been. So Bill's going to a place with no crazy boosters, no crazy money men screaming and yelling in his ear. He won't have any cooks in the kitchen because in North Carolina, it's all about hoop. So it's a pretty good landing spot for that because I don't think Belichick could deal with the nonsense that boosters and the big money people bring. Bill couldn't do this at Texas or Florida or almost any school in the SEC or Ohio State, Michigan. Bill couldn't stand it. It'd drive him insane. Well, I own like 10 dry cleaners. I want to talk to you about your quarterback choice there, Coach Belichick. I give a lot of money to this university. Bill will be like, get out of my office before I kill you. So we'll see. If I had to pick, I'm going to say Bill is going to do better than we think. I don't know what that one-loss record will be. I think he might do better than we believe he'll do. We'll see. Football in the 1 o'clock hour, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors. Terry Ford, glad you could be hanging out. We will spin back to the SEC schedule of South Carolina. Take a look at a few other tidbits of information there on the halftime show here on The Game. What we're talking about is a ton of college football right now. Football in the 1 o'clock hour, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors. One other transfer portal bit of information we didn't get to earlier. South Carolina, according to On3's Pete Nakos, in the top 6 for North Carolina State wide receiver Casey Concepcion, the number 2 overall ranked prospect in the transfer portal, according to On3's rankings. Concepcion has South Carolina, Alabama, Colorado, Florida State, Miami, Texas A&M on his list. And, Concepcion, his freshman year, was really good. Caught 71 passes, 839 yards, 10 touchdowns, also ran for 320. NC State used him as a weapon, a chess piece all over the formation on offense. Last year, they had trouble at quarterback. And Concepcion's numbers fell down, 53 grabs, 460 yards, 6 touchdowns, ran for 2 TDs, has 2 years of eligibility remaining. I guess in Concepcion's world, he'll go play somewhere, hopefully have such a good season he could conceivably go off to the NFL. If not, there's 2 years of eligibility left on Casey Concepcion. That would be a massive get, obviously, if South Carolina could pull that off. But Gamecocks are in the mix. Again, Alabama, Colorado, Florida State, Miami, Texas A&M. Casey Concepcion. All right, back to the schedule for South Carolina. We talked about how, most likely will be favored in 4 of your first 5 games, only one possibly not at Missouri to start the year. So you could get off the chute and get started, started well. And look, Shane, his teams have struggled in September and parts of October and then start rolling in November. And you're looking at teams, Virginia Tech, again, there's some question marks there. They underachieved. Vanderbilt, will they have Diego Pavia? Missouri's got some pieces to replace. Kentucky's got to figure out what went wrong. And Mark Stoops, for the first time in his life, probably on a hot seat in Lexington. So some interesting games early in this season for South Carolina. There's no doubt. Getting themselves to that open date, and then there's LSU, Oklahoma, Alabama, Ole Miss, Texas A&M. If you get some momentum, and let's say you're 4-1 at the worst, moving into that LSU game, pretty good start to the year for you. And no one to say you can't go to Missouri and win. Shane's 0-2 in Como. And like we said earlier, Missouri won all their home games this past season. But we'll see what Missouri is. Who knows? Luther Burden's going to go in the NFL draft. They got some other guys who will pop off to the NFL draft. There's some other question marks around the program that Eli Drinkwitz has to fill. So we'll see. But you're, like I said, you could be in good shape looking at a 4-1 or maybe, who knows, even undefeated. But we'll, again, circle back on predictions when we actually find out who's playing for these teams in the transfer portal era. But again, if you missed it, 4 road games for South Carolina: at Mizzou, at LSU, at Ole Miss, at Texas A&M. Non-conference, Virginia Tech, South Carolina State, Coastal, and also Clemson. And just like this past year, finishing up with 2 teams out of the SEC in Coastal and Clemson. And both those games at Williams-Brice. All right, Shane Beamer was on the SEC Schedule Reveal show, and one of the things he did talk about that wasn't about the schedule was Nagurski Award winner Kyle Kennard. And here's Shane talking about what Kennard brought to the program.
Yeah, a lot. And I was telling Coach Sherrill earlier, you hear a lot of things negative about the transfer portal nowadays in college athletics. And don't get me wrong, there's some things that aren't great about it, but there's a lot of great stories from the transfer portal, and this guy right here is one of them, in that he had a great, and he visited South Carolina. He's a great young man. He knew what he was looking for. It wasn't about money. It was coming to a great place where he can get coached and developed and have a great experience. And his position coach, Sterling Lucas, is here tonight. Sterling did a great job with him. And I told Coach Sherrill, to me, if you can find guys in the transfer portal that are great people, which he is, great players, which he is, and more important, they love football and they love to compete, you're going to be successful. And that's what Kyle Kennard is, and he's shown that all this year, and that's why he's here tonight.
I mean, that's the thing about this portal deal. It's so tough because it happens so fast, right? And look, what a guy brings to you off the field is just as important as what he's going to bring you on the field. You don't want to bring me guys in who just care about getting their bag and getting themselves some tape for the NFL. You want guys who actually care about wins and losses, care about your culture and your team and their teammates. And Shane crushed it with Kyle Kennard, Demetrius Knight, Rocket Sanders, and the guys in this transfer portal class. They're just a bunch of dudes who not only cared about themselves, but cared about the team dynamic and were great culture guys / leaders. It does matter. I know people roll their eyes about it, but this is not Madden. This isn't fantasy football. This is played like by human beings. And you got to have leaders, and you got to have guys who want to grind and want to win. And just going out like, Jimbo Fisher, that recruiting class a few years ago really is what did Jimbo Fisher in as a head coach at Texas A&M. Think about it. He went out and got this historic recruiting class. But he brought a bunch of me guys in. Guys just cared about, yeah, dude, I'll be here for 3 years till I get to the league. Man, I just care about how much money you're going to give me. I care about me. That's what there was, a bunch of me guys. So dudes got in trouble off the field. The culture was bad. The leadership was bad, and the team underachieved, and it got Jimbo fired. The lesson here is easy. Yeah, you want to get you want to get great players. You want to get the highest guys in star systems. I get it. But you got to bring in culture guys, too. It just can't be, let's go get a bunch of 5 stars. We're going to win. It doesn't work that way, man. It just doesn't. Especially now in the era of the transfer portal. It's got to be not only really good players, but really good fits for your culture and your program. And these guys are about winning, not just about coming in, throwing some money in their Venmo and trying to get off to the NFL. That's not it. So with Kyle Kennard, Demetrius Knight, Rocket Sanders, and that crew, they brought a winning culture to that locker room. And when your leaders are grinders and they want to win and they care about team and they care about having more points on the scoreboard than the other squad, guys fall in line. They just do. So, yeah, Kyle Kennard brought a lot, not just on the field, but off the field for South Carolina. And, Shane's big on culture, whether it's his coaching staff, players, whatever. Secretaries, I don't know, cocky. Shane's all about we want to bring in the right people to fit with what we're doing as a program. He says it about coaches, too, all the time. He wants to bring in the right people who fit for his vision of what University of South Carolina football program should be, and he crushed it in this last portal deal from 2024. And you're hoping the same thing will happen in 2025. The blueprint, look, you can't live by the portal, die by the portal. But when you go in to fill weaknesses or add depth, Shane has he's got a blueprint. Is it always going to be like this last class? There's no guarantee of that, but he sees it. He gets it. You want to, the best you can, because this is so fast and so quick, you got to be able to find out about these dudes off the field. And you don't have a lot of time. That's why sometimes you can screw it up. You can. Because it's just not easy, because it flies at you fast in December. I will get our Firehouse Up text the hour next, 803-404-6100, as we continue to kick football in the 1 o'clock hour, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors here on the Game in Columbia, Florence, and Myrtle Beach. We're doing football in the 1 o'clock hour, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors. Time to get our text of the hour, 803-446-6100. We were talking about in the first hour, Tyler and I, that word is the Bama game at home is homecoming. We were like, hey, you really want Bama for homecoming? How about Coastal? Usually you schedule a homecoming with a team you feel like you can beat. Not to say you can't beat Alabama. You should have beat them at Tuscaloosa last year. Texter says, though, hell yeah for homecoming. I ain't scared of no Alabama. Bring them on. Should have beat them last year. Or this year, matter of fact. Well, obviously the texter meant. But yeah, so appreciate the text. And you should feel that way. You had Alabama beat in Tuscaloosa, just couldn't finish the job. This isn't Nick Saban's Alabama. We saw Alabama get smoked by Oklahoma in Norman. Oh, by the way, South Carolina went and smoked Oklahoma in Norman. We saw Alabama lose to Vandy in Nashville. South Carolina went to Nashville and handled Vandy without a whole lot of problem. So, yeah, you shouldn't be scared of big, bad Alabama. Totally agree. Shouldn't be scared of anybody on the schedule. There's nobody on the schedule South Carolina can't beat, home or away. If we're going to continue to see the momentum grow in this program from this year, with this young quarterback, with the potential of this young quarterback, and yeah, you lose a lot on the defensive line, you lose a lot in the linebacker room. It'd be nice to add a wide receiver, another offensive lineman, maybe add a veteran running back. But you also have some nice young talent you're hoping is developing that's ready to pop. And you can go back in the portal again because you are a favorable destination for players. You are. I mean, Shane Beamer and his staff and that program are all about player-friendly. They're about culture. Yeah, they're about accountability and stuff like that. But they're also a player-friendly program. And they lead from the positive and all those other good things. So, yeah, the potential is there to add high-level players in the portal. Players talk, right? Sure. You work in a profession. You and the people in your profession may be at different, shops or companies or different places talk about, I loved working there. Oh, you don't want to work there. The guy that runs that place is great. The guy that runs that place there is a goof. And college players do the same thing. High school players do it. The culture for this program under Shane Beamer is very player-friendly. So there's so much here to keep this momentum going. So you shouldn't be scared to play anybody on that schedule. Oh, go to LSU. No chance. No, you can win LSU. Yeah, I mean, they've always got talent, but we saw what happened this past year. LSU is far from unbeatable. You can go to College Station and win. Notre Dame did it. Texas did it. It's not like it can't happen. You can go to Ole Miss and win. Yeah, last year Eli Drinkwitz, Missouri was undefeated at home, but doesn't mean they'll be that good at home again this year. So, yeah, Texter, I agree with you. Bring them on. I understand. We were just saying, usually you schedule an easier game on homecoming just to cover yourself. But anyway, appreciate the text, 803-404-6100. Tomorrow, this is really cool. I want to get this in before I forget, because I will. Man, I got to go to the men's clinic. My mind. Whew. I drank away a lot of brain cells over the years. All right, so tomorrow from 6 to 9, the early game with Preston and Elijah Campbell filling in on the early game. Elijah's filling in for Tyler, who is filling in for Bill. They will be hanging out broadcasting live over at the fairgrounds. Palmetto Cards, it will be part of the South Carolina Card Show all weekend. All weekend. Friday's VIP only, $20 admission. Show opens at 4. That pass is good all weekend. Saturday, $5 admission. Show opens at 10, goes till 6. VIPs get in at 9. Sunday, $5 admission, 10 to 4. VIPs, 9 a.m. It is, if you're into memorabilia, this is the hang. Also, athletes scheduled. There's some athletes scheduled that day as well. You will have, I believe, Xavier Leggett and also, let me see who else off the top of my head. I told you, top of my head ain't working the way it used to. Alshon Jeffrey, I believe it is. Yes, Xavier Leggett, Alshon Jeffrey will be there as well. So it's going to be a good time. A very good time. Palmetto Cards will be there for the South Carolina Card Show. Again, we will be promoting and previewing 6 to 9 tomorrow morning on the early game. So, yeah, I want to get that in before I forgot, because I will. All right, what's trending at 2 coming up here in just a little bit. One of the things, this whole deal in Philadelphia, we want to re-examine this real quick. Because today Preston and I were talking about it. And your first thought is A.J. Brown, the wide receiver, is a diva. He just wants the ball. It's about me, me, me. And maybe not. Maybe there's more to it than you think. Preston and I started going over some numbers and looking at some things. We're like, does A.J. Brown have a legit beef? Now, he shouldn't have brought it out in the open to the media. But should A.J. Brown be frustrated? We'll get into that coming up and what's trending at 2. Sponsored by Traditions Fine Jewelry and Gamecock Traditions. Also get you caught up in some other stuff going on. A lot of college football talk. College football, this is very interesting. With everything going on in December, with the college football playoff, the transfer portal, coaches being hired and fired, and early signing days, college football gets a ton of love in December. Sometimes as much, if not more, than the NFL. So we'll get more into some of the comings and goings in college football because there's a ton of things going on. What's trending at 2, sponsored by Traditions Fine Jewelry and Gamecock Traditions, coming up next. Also, your chance to win more tickets, women's basketball tickets for this weekend coming up next hour, so get set for that. That will be happening here on the Halftime Show. Also, we have some guests that we'll be spending some time with as well in the 2 o'clock hour right here on the game. The place I really need to go to, I just said a minute ago, the Men's Clinic of South Carolina. 803, just give them a call, 803-875-MENS. Because, look, low testosterone affects almost every man. You just aren't what you used to be when you were 35, 30, 25. You don't remember things as well as you used to. Raise my hand there. Also, you don't sleep as well. You know, your workouts, you don't lift as much. You don't recover as well. Your drive, life, sex drive, professional drive, personal drive, it's not the same. You don't have that like you used to. All these things could just be because of low testosterone. One way to find out. You go over to the Men's Clinic of South Carolina, do the free consultation. It's confidential. You tell them your story. If they think it could be low T, they'll do lab work. If it is low testosterone, they'll put you on a plan to get you feeling like you again. Make that call, Men's Clinic of South Carolina. Halftime show. Terry Ford, appreciate you hanging out as we go till 3 here on the game. Then Elijah and Jack Veltri from Gamecock Central with the post-game show. Jay, take a couple days off. Wants to hang out with his family. I mean, go figure. So Elijah rolling with Jack Veltri today. And then tomorrow, Elijah also solo for a bit. And then we're going to re-rack some best of the week from the post-game show with Jay and Elijah. Coach Tanner, still the athletic director, was on earlier this week, and Ryan Brewer came in for a really good weekly visit. So in case you missed that, we'll re-rack that for you late tomorrow afternoon on Best of the Post-Game Show. But Elijah rolling by himself the next couple days here on the game. All right, speaking of Elijah, he will not be here tomorrow night, but Justin Hall and a special guest on the Love Chevy High School Football Scoreboard Show, the state championship version. That is, again, Friday night, 9 to 11. Here on the game, we'll have Justin Hall on tomorrow with us here at 1:30 to preview state championships. All right, what's trending at 2, sponsored by Traditions Fine Jewelry and Gamecock Traditions. All right, back to the transfer portal watch, thanks to our buddies at Gamecock Central. South Carolina will host Florida Gator defensive lineman Kelby Collins for a visit next week. Collins with the Gators for 2 years, now in the portal. On 3's Chad Simmons says Kelby Collins should visit Tuesday, December 17th. He's also going to visit Alabama and Texas A&M as well. Coming out of high school, Kelby Collins was a 4-star from the state of Alabama, matter of fact. And South Carolina, Collins was a Gamecock target back in 2023. So another interesting visit from the portal for South Carolina coming up next week. Another college football piece of news. Remember Malachi Nelson, don't you? You remember old Malachi. Number 1 overall prospect in the 2023 class. Went to Southern Cal to learn under the quarterback whisperer, Lincoln Riley. Caleb Williams is leaving. Malachi Nelson figures it's my time, baby. And it wasn't. And Malachi Nelson said, okay, I'm getting in the portal. I'm taking off. Miller Moss became the starting quarterback for the bowl game. Moss tore it up last year in the bowl game for Southern Cal, was a starter to begin this year. And it really didn't work well for Miller Moss. He got benched. And now Miller Moss is in the transfer portal. Malachi Nelson, once he jumped in the portal, he was like, okay, where am I going to go take my 5-starriness? Who's going to bring me in? I'm going to go somewhere where I can just be the starter, be the man, be the dude. Prove Lincoln Riley wrong. Because I feel like there was something about Malachi Nelson. Either Lincoln Riley said you're not ready, or there was something with Malachi Nelson's game where he just wasn't being anointed the next guy. Because Lincoln Riley has no problem starting young quarterbacks. Started Caleb Williams. Remember, he took over for Spencer Rattler, and Williams was a freshman. So there was something in Malachi Nelson's game where it was physical, mental, whatever it is. Lincoln Riley wasn't ready to hand him the keys. So Nelson, he took his own keys and rolled. Went to Boise State. Now, your first thought was, Malachi Nelson's going to start at Boise State. Taylon Green's leaving the starting quarterback. The road is wide open for Malachi Nelson. All he's got to do is beat out this little small quarterback named Maddox Madsen. That's all he's got to do. Well, Malachi Nelson couldn't. Maddox Madsen won the gig. And the best thing Madsen did is not turn the ball over. Only threw 3 picks all year, 22 touchdown passes, hit 62% of his throws, threw for over 2,700 yards. Malachi Nelson didn't get on the field. So guess what? Malachi Nelson's back in the portal. And once you start this, and we'll see where it ends up, but it becomes a what's wrong with you problem. And Malachi Nelson would have left Southern Cal, and Lincoln Riley, just say him and Lincoln Riley didn't vibe. It didn't work. But then he goes to Boise State, and he can't beat out a quarterback that he should have beat out easily in Maddox Madsen. And now you're going to go to your third team. Why couldn't you beat out Maddox Madsen? What is it about you? That's what Malachi Nelson's got to figure out, right? What's your deal, man? It's like anything. If things keep happening badly over and over again to one person, you, what is it about you? So Malachi Nelson's got to figure that out because, again, he was the number one recruit in the country coming out of high school. And it just hasn't worked out. And now Malachi Nelson will be searching for his third team. He had offers from Georgia, Bama, Ohio State, Michigan, and Notre Dame coming out of high school. After his 1 year at Southern Cal, he went to Boise State, which is also interesting because he didn't go to any other Power 4 schools or anybody that had recruited him the first go-around. He went to Boise State because he figured, I'm going to win this gig easy. I'm going to put up some big numbers. Then I'll transfer again in a year or two to a Power 4. That's what I'll do. Didn't work out. So we'll see what happens with Malachi Nelson. All right, what's trending at 2, sponsored by Traditions Fine Jewelry and Gamecock Traditions. All right, so the Philadelphia Eagles have a problem. I don't know if it's a big problem, small problem. If you keep winning, no one cares. But if you start losing, this will be a thing. A.J. Brown, not happy with not getting the football after the close win over Carolina. Passing offense sputtering. Hasn't been consistent at times this year. A lot of the success the Eagles started to have is when they just, you know what we're going to do? We're going to turn around and give it to Saquon Barkley. And the passing game has taken a back seat. Nobody throws the ball less than the Eagles. And they've got 2 high-level wide receivers, good tight end, and a back that can catch a ball out of the backfield. But for some reason, the passing game can't get going. So you look at 2 things. The quarterback, Jalen Hurts, the offensive coordinator, Kellen Moore. What's wrong? Because at first you go, A.J. Brown's got to be a diva. He just wants the ball. Me. That's these wide receivers. Maybe not so much. Before we get to that, though, head coach Nick Sirianni talked about this on WIP a couple days ago. And here's Sirianni. And by the way, his answers to the question about the problem with A.J. Brown and Jalen Hurts, very predictable.
I think what again, there's going to be speculation of what things look like because you guys don't have let's be honest, you guys don't have all the information.
Sure.
Right?
Yep.
You don't get to see it on a daily basis. All I can judge is on, and this is very similar to, when people were asking me about Jalen and I's relationship or whatever it was. Like all I can judge things on is what I see on a daily basis. When I see, AJ and Jalen communicating about the game plan, eating lunch together every single day, praying with each other before the game. And so there's going to be speculation, and I get it, rightfully so, based on what's happened the last couple days. But all you can do is judge what you see. I have more information. I see them every single day. I see what's going on in the building. And so you just have to, to me, we know what there's going to be noise, and I get, and I obviously get it, just based off of what's happened here in the last couple of days. But I go on my daily relationships with these guys, with myself. I go on the daily relationships that I see every single day.
Yeah, look, Nick Sirianni's there every day. But is Nick Sirianni going to come out in an interview with a sports radio station in Philly and say, yeah, man, we got a locker room problem. These 2 dudes hate each other. It's crazy. Just the other day, A.J. Brown covered Jalen Hurts' car with Limburger cheese. It's nuts. Of course he's not going to say that. Of course not. But this is interesting. My first thought was this was on A.J. Brown. A.J. Brown did not handle it well. He should not have let this get into the media at all. A.J. Brown's quote should have been, when asked about what can the offense do better, everybody can get better and everybody can work on stuff. But the important thing is we just posted a W. And it's about winning. As long as we keep winning, everything else will take care of itself. Next question. But A.J. Brown couldn't do it because he was so frustrated because he just wasn't getting the ball. Now, a wide receiver can want the ball because he wants to pump his numbers. A wide receiver can want the ball because he thinks, you get the ball in my hands, I can help us win games because I'm really good. Now, with A.J. Brown, it could be both. I don't know. But Brown didn't handle it well to the media. So he comes off as a selfish diva who, in a win, is not happy because he's not getting the ball. And when you're winning, the number one thing you should be happy about is you won. If you want to go home and whine and moan to your girlfriend, your wife, your buds, your dog, and say, look, I want to get the ball more. This is BS. That's fine. But you should be, number one, just happy you got another W because, like we always hear, winning in the NFL is hard. But if you deep dive in numbers a little bit, and Preston and I were doing this today, we were just kind of yipping back and forth and started going into some numbers. Because our first thought was, to be fair, is A.J. Brown frustrated because he's not getting the ball and he wants it and he's selfish, or is he frustrated because he's open and Jalen Hurts can't get him the ball? Because again, Jalen Hurts, the knock on Jalen Hurts coming out of college was Jalen Hurts wasn't consistent throwing the football down the field. He had issues throwing it past 10 yards in that sweet intermediate spot of the passing game you've got to be good at to be successful in the NFL. But then Jalen Hurts in Philly, after a couple of years, there was talk he had really worked on his footwork and his technique, and he was just a much more polished, consistent thrower down the field. And you saw when the Eagles went to the Super Bowl and how good Hurts was. But now here we are 2 years later, and the Eagle passing game's a struggle despite all of this talent on the offensive side of the ball for Philly. So you deep dive into the numbers with the help of Pro Football Focus, and you see that Jalen Hurts this year has had some struggles throwing the ball down the field outside the hashes. Because that's the NFL throw. The deep comeback, the deep out. That's a throw you got to make consistently well in the NFL to be a high-level quarterback. There's been some struggles. A couple years ago when Shane Steichen was the offensive coordinator in Philly before Steichen took the Indianapolis Colts head coaching gig, Jalen Hurts made a lot of throws in the middle of the field in that intermediate area and was really successful. Now you look at it, Hurts doesn't throw the ball that much in the middle of the field this year with Kellen Moore, the offensive coordinator. Now, A, has Kellen Moore changed the offense? B, have teams, after getting enough tape, know that Jalen Hurts likes to throw in the middle of the field, and they're doing what they can to take that away from him and force him to throw outside the hashes. But this feels like, well, before I get to that, if you look at A.J. Brown and you look at deep dive numbers, he's one of the best receivers in the NFL when it comes to getting open. A.J. Brown is open a lot. So could this be, to be fair, A.J. Brown being frustrated for the fact that, hey, I'm running around the field wide open and number one can't get me the ball? Because maybe defenses are trying to take away what Jalen Hurts does well, and now what Jalen Hurts is trying to do, he can't do as well, and maybe Kellen Moore is doing some things differently on offense that aren't playing to the strengths of Jalen Hurts as well. This feels like a Jalen Hurts / Kellen Moore problem more than an A.J. Brown problem. Just saying. Just saying. So sometimes when you start digging into it and looking at stuff, you go, maybe my first thought was absolutely wrong. And it might be with that. Maybe this is more of a Jalen Hurts, Kellen Moore problem than an A.J. Brown problem. Again, A.J. Brown didn't handle it right. My man should have just, handled his business and kept it in the family. But this might be not just a wide receiver being a diva. This might be a wide receiver just really frustrated because he's open and his quarterback / OC can't get him the ball. Just saying. All right, what's trending at 2? Sponsored by Traditions Fine Jewelry and Gamecock Traditions. We're going to hear some Lamont Paris, the men's basketball coach here at Carolina, talking about a variety of things with Derek Scott. And we'll hear Lamont talk about that win over East Carolina and also scouting Clemson. Clemson, by the way, beat Kentucky at Clemson. So Clemson's pretty good this year. So we'll hear from Lamont Paris on those two topics coming up next. Also give you a chance to win some tickets between now and the bottom of the hour to go check out the Gamecock Women Sunday at CLA at 2 o'clock. So all that's coming up on the halftime show. What's trending at 2, sponsored by Traditions Fine Jewelry and Gamecock Traditions right here on The Game. Halftime show. Terry Ford, appreciate you hanging out with us as we are rolling What's Trending at 2, sponsored by Traditions Fine Jewelry and Gamecock Traditions. Lamont Paris, Carolina calls last night with Derek Scott. Talking about a bunch of different things about Gamecock men's basketball. Of course, coming up 1:30 pregame festivities Saturday against USC Upstate. 2 o'clock tip. And you can hear it right here on 107.5 The Game in Columbia and our affiliate 100.3 The Game in Myrtle Beach. Well, Lamont, first of all, was discussing the win over East Carolina. A win where, it started slow. Took a little bit to get it going. But once South Carolina got it going, they built up a double-digit lead and held on for the victory. Here's Lamont talking about the win over the Pirates.
Yeah, I look forward to, I didn't say this to their coach, but I look forward to never playing those guys ever again. Unless we somehow get a mandatory assignment in the NCAA tournament or something like that. But, it's a unique defense. It's, you got to be sharp. You just never, unless you make a bunch of threes, and we did make a high percentage of threes, but unless you make a high volume of threes, you're just never going to, it's hard to beat them by
hard
20.
To separate.
Yeah, it just is hard to separate. So it's always going to be close. And then if they make a couple of shots, it gets closer. We find ourselves down double figures in that game. Before we kind of had cracked the code, particularly like the first time that you play them. And for a lot of these guys, it was, first time playing against that style.
Right.
But I was happy with a lot of stuff that we did, especially on the offensive end and some of the adjustments that we were able to make and get to where we felt comfortable with where we were in the game.
South Carolina in the first half scuffled, scored 27 points. Nobody besides Colin Murray-Boyles could make a hoop. And East Carolina went in with a 5-point lead. But the Gamecocks came out on fire in the second half. Scored 48 after halftime. Won 75-68. Had a double-digit lead in the second half. And, Gamecocks started scorching. They ended up for the game hitting 54% of their shots, 52% from three, 83% from the line. Colin Murray-Boyles was perfect, 10 for 10. He had 10 rebounds. Did miss 2 free throws, though. Perfect from the field, missed 2 free throws. Of course, Lamont brought that up when Carolina calls him and Derek. They were kidding around about it. But Colin Murray-Boyles with 20 and 10 with a double-double. But the guy, now, you want to bottle this game moving forward. Jamari Thomas scored 22, dished out 7 assists, only had 3 turnovers, 7 of 14 from the floor, 5 of 8 from 3, got to the line 7 times. You wanted to make more than 3 free throws, though. But Thomas, that's the kind of production you need from Thomas. Dishing out assists, scoring when he has the opportunity. Now, again, he jacked up 14 shots, but he made 7 out of 14. And was really good from 3, hitting 5 threes in 8 attempts. If you can get Jamari Thomas playing at that level offensively, that's what you need to go with Colin Murray-Boyles. Because he's still dishing dimes, he's still passing the ball, getting guys theirs, but he also had his. So, Jamari Thomas, easily his best game as a Gamecock. Zach Davis had 10 points off the bench, a good game for Zach. He even hit 2 threes in 2 attempts, 3 of 5 from the floor. Zach's strength obviously is going to the rack. But if Zach Davis starts hitting threes to go with his athleticism to the basket, he could be a much improved offensive player this year. But South Carolina got it going. Morris Ugasuk hitting 3 or 4 from 3. He's had some really nice moments hitting threes early this year for South Carolina coming off the bench. Nick Pringle, 10 boards, which is great, and that's what you want from Nick Pringle. 8 points, only took 3 shots, made 4 free throws in 4 attempts. You hope Nick Pringle gets some consistently offensively. That could give the Gamecocks a presence down low. Right now, that's still a work in progress. But overall, that second half was really nice for South Carolina on the offensive end of the court. They really got it cooking. Now, here's Lamont Paris talking about scouting the Clemson Tigers, who, like I said, they got a nice win here within the last week over Kentucky at Clemson.
Similarities stylistically and some of the things and some of our foundational beliefs. So that tends to make for, honestly, if you look at the last two games, were both really good games. We won on a buzzer beater here in my first year. In a tie game situation in the last second. And then last year, we led almost all of the game, the vast majority of the game. And then we relinquished the lead, but we had a chance to make a comeback, missed a couple of plays, but they've been good games. So no reason to think that this one won't be either. It's a good game for us, a good game for them, and fun for the state. To be able to rally around, but with some of the Gamecock performances this year against the old Tigers, we feel like we got to hold up our end of the bargain.
There you go.
All right. Well, if you look at the analytics when it comes to college basketball, Ken Palm, we love Ken Palm. Ken Palm's made me a lot of money in the NCAA tournament. But anyway, South Carolina 6-3. They're 67th in Ken Palm's ratings. 78th on offense, 66 on defense. Again, a slow start to the season. Things are starting to get better for South Carolina, and Ken Palm will go up in time if they continue to improve through the season. Clemson right now is hanging at number 20 in Ken Palm. 41 offensive efficiency rating, 7th on defense in the country. Clemson 9-1 on the year. So the Tigers, they played very well in the defensive end of the court. Their only loss this year, believe it or not, they beat Kentucky, beat Miami, lost to Boise State. That's their only L of the season. So Clemson playing well on D offensively, sitting at 41. That's above average, but their defense has really been on a high level so far during the season. Of course, USC Upstate is who South Carolina will take on this Saturday. Again, 2 o'clock. Is the tip, 1:30 pregame right here on the game in Columbia, and also our affiliate in Myrtle Beach. All right, the women also play this weekend. South Florida on Sunday. Again, 1:30 pregame, 2 o'clock tip. You can hear right here on 107.5 The Game in Columbia. You want to go? We're going to give away 3 pair of tickets right in a row. Caller 4, caller 5, and caller 6 right now. 803-404-6100. Again, caller 4, caller 5, caller 6, 803-404-6100. And give us a ring right now and win tickets to go check out the women play South Florida on Sunday at CLA. Also, today is December 12th, which is the greatest day in the history of the world. That's coming up next here on the Halftime Show. Terry Ford, appreciate you just chilling out with us till 3 on the game. We got our winners for our women's basketball tickets. Appreciate you calling like always, and thanks for listening. Again, that is Sunday against South Florida, 1:30 pregame, 2 o'clock tip here on the game. Again, tomorrow, the early game, 6 to 9 with Preston and Elijah broadcasting live with Palmetto Cards at the South Carolina Card Show at the State Fairgrounds. Again, 6 to 9 a.m., basically just kind of getting you ready for the event. It starts tomorrow. There's VIP tickets you can get. We'll circle back on that before we get out of here. Xavier Leggett will be there, Alshon Jeffrey. So it'll be a good 3 days, and we'll get more into it. But again, 6 to 9, the early game with Preston and Elijah at the South Carolina Fairgrounds for the South Carolina Card Show with Palmetto Cards. All right, that's coming up. All right, greatest day in the history of the world. Not a lot of real old school, like, something from 1912. The oldest old school to really get to, 1958, Gordie Howe, the Detroit Red Wings, scores his 400th NHL goal in a 2-2 tie against the Montreal Canadiens. We talk about Gordie Howe every now and then when he pops up on history. Dude was a freak. Gordie Howe, people will say, look, Wayne Gretzky Wayne Gretzky's the greatest all-around offensive player in the history of the NHL. When it comes to passing the puck, scoring goals, Gretzky was just phenomenal. A special offensive talent. But you go about all-around players, from what I've heard and been told by old heads that love hockey and follow hockey, Gordie Howe is the greatest ever. They used to always talk about Gordie Howe's hat trick was a goal, assist, and a fight. Gordie Howe not only scored a lot, set up guys by passing the puck, he also would beat the snot out of you. Nicknamed Mr. Hockey. Guy played 26 years in the NHL, 6 years in the World Hockey Association. In the WHA, he played with his kids, Marty and Mark, for the Houston Aeros. He took the ice for the Hartford Whalers in his early 50s. Guy was insane. I was saying, could you play professional sports with your dad? We talked about that with Bronny James and LeBron. I love my dad to death. I love Dean Ford. He was a great man, but I wouldn't have wanted to work with him. No. I'm sure, you might be listening saying, I work with my family every day. It's great. Or I work with my family every day. I want to beat myself in the face with a pickaxe. Being with my family and working to me has got to be separate. I couldn't have worked with my dad. No way. He probably wouldn't work with me either. Probably been like, I don't want to work with my kid. He'd drive me nuts. But Gordie Howe scoring his 400th NHL goal this day in 1958. 1983, Detroit Pistons beat the Denver Nuggets 186-184 in triple overtime. Highest scoring game in NBA history. Isaiah Thomas scored 47. Kiki Vandeweghe of the Denver Nuggets bagged 51 in that game. Crazy. 1997, Michigan's Charles Woodson is named the first predominantly defensive player to win the Heisman Trophy in the 63 years of the award. Woodson and the Wolverines, they beat Washington State in the 1998 Rose Bowl, claiming a perfect 12-0 season and a share of the national championship. A lot of people thought Ndamukong Suh should have won the Heisman. I agree. He was the most dominant player in college football his final year. But he didn't get it because, again, he's a defensive tackle. This year, Travis Hunter will win the Heisman. We haven't really talked about it, but Travis Hunter will win the Heisman because he's a two-way player and he plays wide receiver and corner at a high level. Is he the best wide receiver in college football? No. Is he the best corner in college football? Probably no. But he plays them both at a high level. There are people who say he can play either position in the NFL. He'll win the Heisman. But he's not just solely a defensive player. But what Travis Hunter's done this year regarding the amount of snaps he has played is just ridiculous. 1998, Gary Anderson kicked 6 field goals, including an NFL record with 34 straight without a miss. He did it in a win over Baltimore, 38-28. This program, if you keep up with lower levels of college football, you've heard of Mount Union. Division III school, for years they were dominant. Mount Union on this day in 2003 broke their own NCAA record by winning their 55th consecutive game, beating Bridgewater 66-0. By the way, that was in the Division III semifinals. They're in the Final Four. The team they're playing in the Final Four, they skull kicked 66-0. Wow. Unreal. This day in 2007, Major League Baseball's Mitchell Report was released, identifying 85 names to differing degrees in a 409-page document. The biggest name linked to the steroid deal was 7-time Cy Young Award winner Roger Clemens. Of course, George Mitchell, former Senate Majority Leader, put together the report. That's why it was called the Mitchell Report. Yes, Roger Clemens was in there, a bunch of guys. And the best line from Roger Clemens was when Andy Pettit was discussing Clemens and performance-enhancing drugs. Clemens was like, well, maybe Andy misremembered. And Roger came up with a new word. On this day in 2010, Minnesota Viking quarterback Brett Favre sidelined by a damaged throwing shoulder. It ended Favre's streak of 297 consecutive starts over 19 seasons. Marcus Mariota on this day in 2014 won the Heisman Trophy. I thought Marcus Mariota would be a better pro. He was not. But he's a heck of a college player at Oregon. Won the Heisman Trophy. And finally on this day, 2 years ago, Cap center Alexander Ovechkin scores a hat trick in a win over the Blackhawks. Ovechkin joins Wayne Gretzky and Gordie Howe as the only players in NHL history to bag 800 goals. And yes, Ovechkin is hurt right now, but there's a chance he could break Wayne Gretzky's career goal scoring record. Nobody thought that would ever happen. So there's the greatest day in the history of the world right here on the game. All right, so as we talk about Xavier Legette, right? And the South Carolina card show. Legette has become a huge quote in Carolina. And the Panthers, to be fair, have been playing better in the last month. Legette, it wasn't an easy catch, but Xavier Legette should have caught the pass from Bryce Young on that Carolina final drive that would have been the go-ahead touchdown against the Eagles, and conceivably the Panthers might have won the game. Legette couldn't hold on to the throw. Here's Xavier Legette talking about his plans after not being able to pull that touchdown pass in. Here's Xavier Legette being Xavier Legette.
Nah, it ain't y'all, man. It was me, man.
I'm saying.
Bro. I canceled every plan I had after that. I was supposed to go to the Rod Wave concert cup. So as soon as I got in the locker room, I text the boy like, I canceled the suite. I ain't trying to go no more, man.
They love Legette. You hear everybody laughing. They love Legette. He's become something in Carolina. Should have caught the pass though, but they love him. And look, Legette's got a ton of ability, high ceiling, a lot of potential. Hopefully things work out. He's had some good moments this year, and then the moment on Sunday wasn't a great moment. Again, it wasn't an easy catch, but that's a catch you got to make if you're going to be a high-level NFL wide receiver. And Carolina's been playing a lot better, to their credit. They really have. Bryce Young has looked better. The running game has kind of got going. The defense, it hasn't been good all year. They were scraping and scrapping and fighting against the Eagles. Almost pulled off the upset over Philly. Really good game. Really good game. Also, we talked about Scott Frost as we going back to Central Florida. We'll see. I mean, Frost obviously had a lot of success at Central Florida the first time around. Now coming back for a second bite. Here's Scott Frost talking about his happiness on returning to UCF.
You know, when you're climbing the ladder of success in life, sometimes they forget to tell you to stop when you're happy. That being said, there was a lot of pressure. And the biggest thing for me is my dad wasn't doing well, and I got to spend time with him. My wife and I were lucky enough to have 2 daughters born at the next place I went. And you have good times and bad times everywhere. And this game, sometimes you get it done and sometimes you don't. We did the right things here and pushed the right buttons and got it done. And I think we can do that again. In fact, I know we can do that again if we do the right things. UCF, to me, is unique in the country because it's still in its infancy. It might be a toddler now. When I came before, maybe it was in its infancy. But most schools in the country, when you look at the landscape of college football, are kind of pegged where they are, and you know, generally speaking, that's where they're going to be. Always thought since the first time I came until now that the potential for growth and status in college football is bigger here than it is other places, and I'm excited to take the challenge to try to get it there.
I mean, again, you come back to where you're really successful. Central Florida wants to get back to where they were when Scott Frost was the head coach. Frost left on good terms. He's going to his alma mater at Nebraska. It just didn't work out. I said earlier on the show, again, that's one of those I thought was a great hire. I thought Scott Frost would go to Nebraska and they'd start winning again. Oops. But to be fair, Matt Rule, well, I think Matt Rule is a heck of a college football coach. It didn't work out, obviously, with the Panthers in the NFL, but Matt Rule, to me, was, I mean, if you can win at Temple and you can go and fix that mess at Baylor, and it was a mess after Art Briles was gone, if you can do that, you should be able to win at a program like Nebraska. Look, you probably won't win like, the heyday, but you should get back to being a consistent 7 to 9 win program. Matt Rule hasn't done that yet at Nebraska. Maybe this is a Nebraska problem more than a Scott Frost or Matt Rule problem. I don't know. But Scott Frost back at Central Florida now. Let's see if he can, get the Knights back in the right direction after Gus Malzahn leaves to go to Florida State. I will wrap this baby up with our Firehouse Subtext the Hour / take a look at our brand new Twitter X poll as well. That is in our final segment of the halftime show. Terry Ford, appreciate you hanging out. Up next, at the top of the hour, Elijah and Jack, the post-game show here on The Game. Time to knock out our Firehouse Subtext the hour and look at our Twitter X poll for the day. Here on the Halftime Show. Post-game show coming up, Elijah and Jack Velcher from Gamecock Central. Tonight, it is Thursday, right? Okay. Thursday night football, Rams and 49ers. Again, everything gets rolling here with the pregame at 7:30 here on the Game in Columbia. I also believe you can hear it on our affiliates as well. Again, 49ers have been scuffling, a lot of injuries. Rams coming off a big win over the Bills. Now, everybody's jumped on the Rams bandwagon. Matthew Stafford, their quarterback, has been phenomenal lately. But as soon as you know how this goes, when all the media jumps on a team's bandwagon that's been kind of mediocre all year because they get a big win, they get beat. So we'll see what happens. 49ers and Rams, I believe, from San Francisco, 7:30 pregame, 8:15 kick right here on the game. All right, Firehouse Sub text line 803-404-6100. Texter asks, why is the Chick-fil-A bowl game on a Sunday? It's all networks. It's about TV networks and how they slot these games, especially that time of year. They are putting these games on to try to leverage audience, obviously. They're like bowl games in August and early September, right? This game originally was either going to be Sunday, August 31st or Monday, September 1st. So the TV network settled on Sunday, August 31st. And the best thing I can tell you, Texter, is that's the way it goes. The sports world follows the networks. The networks run the show. They spend a ton of money. They get to schedule it the way they want to. Appreciate the text like always, 803-404-6100. All right, our Twitter X poll for today. Should North Carolina be excited about the hire of Bill Belichick? Yes. He won 6 Super Bowls. No, this is a crazy idea. 66% no, this is a crazy idea. 34% yes, he's won 6 Super Bowls. Couple of comments real fast. No, Brady won 6 Super Bowls. Unpopular opinion, he's a product of Tom Brady and an average to good defense. And then the final one, Belichick will handle the X's and O's and somebody else will handle the NIL stuff. I hope his son wants to deal with those headaches. Like I said earlier, my first thought was, yeah, it's crazy. How's he going to relate to these college players? And it's so different than the NFL. Yeah, relating to the players is different because, you got college kids. And remember, they run the show now. NIL deals, if they don't like what's going on, they can hit the transfer portal, boom, gone. The NFL, they don't have a transfer portal. You can't transfer. You got to wait for free agency or if your team lets you go. It's a different world. And I think Bill, what evidence do we have that Bill can deal with college players? We don't. But Belichick is really smart. X's and O's savant. Obviously can coach defense at a high level. Knows the game on both sides of the ball. Very prepared, very organized. What do you take, a 400-page plan to the folks at North Carolina? I think I said this earlier, if you got to ask me which way, if I got to have an opinion if Bill's going to be successful or not, and I got to pick one side or the other, and I think he'll be better than we think he's going to be. The ACC, it ain't tough. North Carolina doesn't have a lot of boosters and big money people who are focused on football who are going to bug the hell out of Belichick. It's a basketball school. And it's been, Mac Brown has won at North Carolina, make no mistake, but they've never been like a big, consistent contender for the college football playoff or anything like that. North Carolina is looked at as a sleeping giant in college football. I believe Belichick will do better than we think because, again, I don't see a massive failure. I'm not saying he's going to win on a big level. I think he's going to be better than I even first thought when I saw this. I thought all this was Belichick's agents trying to, put this rumor out there to see how NFL folks would react to it. Because I know Belichick's agents got to be working back channels to see if Bill can get back in the NFL as a head coach. My guess is he didn't get the feedback he wanted to hear. That people aren't falling over each other for him, and nobody wants to give him total control anymore like he used to have in New England. And I think one of the comments that we had here on the Twitter X, I think there's people in the NFL who do think, Tom Brady really was the thing behind those Super Bowls. Because, again, Brady leaves, wins a Super Bowl in Tampa, and after Brady left, the New England only made the playoffs one time, and they got whooped. So the perception is really it was more Brady than Belichick. I think it was both of them. They needed each other. I don't think separately they would have been as successful as they were together, but I see the perception and the fact that Bill seems to be a very difficult dude to deal with in NFL circles. And, Robert Kraft been talking smack about him. So Bill probably said, okay, I'm not going to get what I want in the NFL. The NFL doesn't want me the way they should. Where can I have total control? I know, college football. And I can see Bill talking himself into it. It's a new challenge. I can do this. We'll see. Belichick was having his presser here a few minutes ago. So we'll find out. All right, we're done. Finished history down the road. Thanks, Dave, earlier for helping out Tyler as well. Up next, Elijah and Jack, the postgame show, next here on The Game.